The July 6, 2023 regular session of the Clarksville City Council is now called to order. Pastor L.T. Whitley of the Christian House of Praise will be our chaplain of the day. Councilperson Stacy Streetman will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I'll invite you to stand if you wish. Pastor Whitley.
Let us pray. Our Lord and our God, God of earth, God of heaven, God of the universe. Lord, we thank you today for our mayor, Mayor Pitts, the city council, and the leaders in every level of our city. God, we pray today that you would give them grace to bring truth, justice, and stability to our city. Give them the power to do what is right and to rule with fairness. May our community be known for justice. We pray for wisdom, strength, and courage to do what is right and good for all citizens. May we put the people's interests above our own. May we act with love for common good. May we be good neighbors, recognizing your image, God, in every person here. We ask that your blessings be on the people of the city of Clarksville, Montgomery County. As we call this meeting to order, God, we invoke your presence now. And we ask that you would come in right now by your spirit. God, we ask that you would bless Clarksville, Montgomery County. These blessings we ask in your son, Jesus' name. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Members, please register your attendance. Madam Clerk, take the roll.
All members are present with the exception of Councilperson Wanda Allen, who is excused, and Councilperson Little.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Next item on our agenda is a extra special recognition. Councilperson Reynolds, you're recognized in the well, and I think Councilperson Zacharias and myself will join you.
Pass in front of you. Hello, everyone, and thank you for coming out tonight. If you're here to support the proclamation. In the state of Tennessee, the LGBTQIA residents do not have full equality, and as the mother of a gay son, I recognize we are currently living in a state of emergency. At every turn, there are cities, counties, and our state legislature are passing laws targeting our most vulnerable populations, as well as enabling and perpetuating homophobia and healthcare discrimination. In the years following a pandemic, where we lost over 767 million human beings, our state legislature has decided to focus on passing laws that divide our communities and are forcing many residents and healthcare providers to flee the state of Tennessee. We as a community are better together. Thank you for that, Mayor. And we must work to break down the barriers that divide us. I will continue to fight like a mom for your rights.
So I'd like to thank Councilperson Reynolds for inviting me to participate in the reading of this proclamation. This proclamation reads, whereas the city of Clarksville, Tennessee recognizes the month of June 2023 was chosen to celebrate the meaningful contributions to our community of the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer. And whereas all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights, LGBTQIA plus individuals have had immeasurable impact to the cultural, civic, and economic successes of our country, state, and city. And whereas the city of Clarksville is committed to supporting visibility, dignity, and equality for LGBTQIA plus people in our diverse community. And
while society at large increasingly supports LGBTQIA equality, it is essential to acknowledge that the need for education and awareness remains vital to the ending discrimination and prejudice. And whereas this nation was founded on the principle that every individual has infinite dignity and worth, and the city of Clarksville calls upon the people of this municipality to embrace this principle and work to eliminate prejudice everywhere it exists. And whereas celebrating Pride Month influences awareness and provides support and advocacy for Clarksville LGBTQIA plus community, and is an opportunity to take action and engage in dialogue to strengthen alliances, build acceptance, and advance equal rights.
Last one. Now, therefore, I, Joe Pitts, Mayor of the City of Clarksville, do hereby proclaim the month of June 2023 as Pride Month and encourage our residents to reflect on the ongoing struggle of equality members of the LGBTQIA plus community face and celebrate the contributions that enhance our city. It is signed, sealed, and now delivered. And Elizabeth Knight was a member of our Mayor's Youth Council. So, Elizabeth, I'm going to present this to you, if I may. And County Commissioner David Shelton, you have 3 sentences.
Well, that was more than what she said. She said a couple of words. Well, I have 2 words, and they are thank you. Those of us that have been in the queer community for all our lives, we know the struggle, we know the impact, we know what it's like to be picked on and cut down by bullies, bullies in school, bullies in work, and bullies in public office. But when we have public servants that are willing to recognize that they serve truly all Clarksvillians, all Americans, no matter how we worship, how we love, or how we identify. And this is just a way for the community to say, we see you, and we treat you with that respect and dignity that we all deserve. So thank you.
Thank you.
Everyone who's here to support the proclamation would stand tonight, please. And I'd like to thank the community for coming out. It means a lot to us. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Next item on our agenda is the Planning Commission report. Councilperson Streetman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. We have 5 items on our agenda tonight. Madam Clerk, will you please read the ordinances?
Ordinance 142, 2022-23, first reading, amending the zoning ordinance and map of the city of Clarksville, application of Burt Singletary for zone change on a tract of land fronting on the east frontage of Pea Ridge Road, east of the Sandbar and Pea Ridge Road and Rudding Drive and Pea Ridge Road intersections from C5 Highway and Arterial Commercial District to PUD Planned Unit Development District. Ordinance 143, 2022-23, first reading, amending the zoning ordinance and map of the city of Clarksville, application of Tanner Properties for zone change on a tract fronting on the north frontage of Rossview Road, 1,000 plus or minus feet west of the Rossview Road and Powell Road intersection from R1 Single Family Residential District to C4 Highway Interchange District and C5 Highway and Arterial Commercial District. Ordinance 144, 2022-23, first reading, amending the zoning ordinance and map of the city of Clarksville, application of Ava Homes for zone change on property fronting on the south frontage of Caldwell Lane, 225 plus or minus feet east of Caldwell Lane and Robert Street intersection from R2 Single Family Residential District to R6 Single Family Residential District. Ordinance 145, 2022-23, first reading, amending the zoning ordinance and map of the city of Clarksville, application of Brian Johnson for zone change on the north frontage of Dover Road, 375 plus or minus feet east of the Dover Road and Stephanie Drive intersection, and the east frontage of Stephanie Drive, 885 plus or minus feet north of the Dover Road and Stephanie Drive intersection, from C2 General Commercial District to C5 Highway and Arterial Commercial District. And ordinance 147, 2022-23, first reading, an ordinance amending the city zoning ordinance of the city of Clarksville, Tennessee, as it pertains to the R3 and R2D zoning classification.
Councilperson Streetman.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Madam Clerk. Mayor, I move we go into public hearing.
Motion been made to revert to public hearing and properly seconded. No, without objection, we're now in public hearing. First item in our public hearing is ordinance 142, 2022-23, amending the zoning ordinance and map of the city of Clarksville, application of Burt Singletary. Anyone in the audience wish to speak in favor of ordinance 142? If you would give us your name and address, you have 5 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor. My name is Burt Singletary, 127 Centerpoint Drive, City Council. First of all, I would like to ask you guys for my vote on this rezoning from C5 to a PUD. I may take any questions first.
Thank you, Mr. Singletary. We have a question. Councilperson Streetman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Singletary, mine's actually not so much a question as to say thank you. When you first brought forward this PUD to the Regional Planning Commission, the original plan, not the plan that we're voting on tonight, I was actually not in favor of it. I appreciate the time you spent listening to residents' concerns that spoke at that first public hearing at the Regional Planning Commission meeting, and the time you spent sitting down with the staff to really try and get essentially, this planned community what it needs to be for that area. So mine is just a thank you for everything that you put into it and the changes that were made to support those requests.
Okay, absolutely.
Councilperson Reynolds, you're recognized.
Yes, so, Mr. Singletary, many of the messages that we've received have been about the walkability and the traffic in the neighborhood. So I would like to know, or I would like you to explain, actually, I've read and we've met. I would like for you to briefly explain, how you're improving that, and just a brief outline of, if it's C5, then you would not be required to do some of those things. So just kind of a brief outline of how you're going to improve those things.
Okay, all right, that's a good point. First of all, we're widening Pea Ridge Road, and we're putting a sidewalk along Pea Ridge Road. And inside of the PUD, we have wider sidewalks than usual, some of them up to 8 feet, 5-foot sidewalks where you can walk from the shops. You can walk to Publix. We'll have a park, about 6 acres of green space. So it's a lot of walkable space. I hope that answered your question.
Just the park. I know, looking at the images, the park is on the end. Will that be open? Like if I'm walking from the neighborhood and I'm going to pass through the community to get to Publix, will the park be open to the public, or is it a private park?
It will be open to the public.
Councilperson Smith, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Singletary, I looked at your plan. It is beautiful the way you have it set up. And I know you know that there's a lot of oppositions against this. So what do you have to say to the citizens in that area to make them feel good about it, to let them know not to worry? It's going to be all right.
Okay, yes. I think the first thing that I would say to the citizens is this community here will actually give them somewhere to go. There's no parks in that area, okay? It will also have a lot of park area that you can, more so common area where you can get together. We'll have shops where they can walk over, get ice cream, sodas, whatever. I think it's going to be a big plus for them. And I've talked to some of the people, and a lot of them, now that they've seen what we're doing and heard what we're doing, are really excited about it.
Well, it looks good.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Any other questions for Mr. Singletary? Seeing none, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else in the audience wish to speak in favor of ordinance 142? Anyone in the audience wish to speak against ordinance 142? If you would give us your name and address, you have 5 minutes.
Bradford Davis, 2298 Button Court. Mr. Mayor, City Council, good evening to you. It seems that I stand here for no reason at all. You all have made up your minds. Congratulations, beautiful. Mr. Singletary has said that he has, gotten the buy-in from the neighborhoods. He has not. Many of us are not happy about this. I don't need to sit here and cite to you the concerns of safety, traffic, speed, our children. You all know all these things. The Regional Planning Commission has supposedly done its job here and has said, yep, all is good. You can definitely fit all these apartments and, over 500 individuals into this plot of land, and 2-lane Pea Ridge Road can definitely handle that, and the infrastructure is there to accommodate that. I'm disheartened to hear the comments from the council. It is very unfortunate that you all have apparently, at least to the public, have made up your minds about this. I'm not sure what I could say that could change your minds, but I appreciate the time to at least be heard.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Councilperson Smith, you had a question for Mr. Davis?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Davis, for coming forth and to speak on behalf of your community. Have you seen the plan?
Oh, yes.
Now, so, and I see that Mr. Singletary, he spoke that he was gonna widen Pea Ridge Road. And he's gonna have even wider sidewalks in the area, and you would have places to go. And so we know that there's a Publix there, and the community is being built up. So what would you like to see, since you wouldn't want what he has proposed?
Well, I would say that the plan about widening Pea Ridge Road and adding sidewalks has changed in 3 days. Before, it was just going to be adding of a turning lane where Publix is at, a traffic light at some point. But commercial sounds great. I would love to have a Chick-fil-A right across the street, Councilwoman. That'd be phenomenal.
So that's what you just want, a chicken fillet?
That would be
I'm
phenomenal.
sure, I'm almost sure to be there. It will be there with the growth that we're having, and I believe they will come. And the widening of Pea Ridge Road, it should make you happy. The new sidewalks, they wider. I don't have any in my neighborhood, so you're blessed to get them.
If that actually comes to pass, that would be phenomenal.
Yes.
But I'm not sold. Like I said, this has changed in 3 days. So
But this-
saying one thing to you all tonight is a lot different from what we have been told.
Yeah, but I know Mr. Singletary, he usually keeps his word,
Oh.
because we have been dealing with him for years now.
Yes.
He's a man of his word.
I can tell you've been dealing with him for years.
Okay. But thank you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Councilperson Reynolds for Mr. Davis?
Yes. I just want to say that I respect your frustration overall, and I'm sorry for that. I would just like to tell you that this pod has been like 8 months, 6 to 8 months that has been going back and forth. So for many of us, we've seen it and read it. And I personally sat down with Mr. Singletary several months ago because I was concerned about it. It's on that, I think you are actually in my district. And so I was very concerned about it and sat down and asked him to make some changes and push some things back in. And he did that. And I do respect your concerns for the traffic. The one reason that I appreciate a PUD is, unlike the other type of zonings, when you approve a PUD, they're only allowed about a 10% variance from what we vote on tonight. So he can't add more apartments, he can't take a sidewalk away. All the other times when we vote for a zone, they can come up and tell us whatever they're gonna do, but they're not held legally to what they say. When we vote for a PUD, the images, the sidewalk, the setbacks, those are not negotiable any longer once we vote, because if he has to change it, then it has to come back to us. And while I understand the frustration, this is where I would like us to go as a community, to more planned communities like this, or knowing what we're voting for instead of just a blank copy of, oh, I'm going to do apartments, or I'm going to do C5 and mix it, and then I only do apartments. So I want you to know that I understand what you're saying, but we didn't just come here tonight to make up our minds. I want you to know that, or I personally did not. I've went back and forth with this several times, and I've sat down at the planning commission to discuss it as well.
Councilperson Marquis, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess I just also kind of want to address a couple of things, because there are things that are information and access to information that council sometimes get before the public, or we just see that the public doesn't always see, like the traffic studies. Speaking with the engineers and developers one-on-one more often than the public, with regards to the traffic, there is a light that absolutely has to go in, because he will not be allowed to do or anything with regards to having people move in, restaurants, and none of that. So even if this does get approved, until that happens, there's just an empty lot, or pretty much. And it's part of the requirement of the PUDs and all that stuff, because essentially, kind of like what my previous councilperson said, this is a contract, ultimately. Everything that's written down, he has to do, because that's what's been negotiated pretty much. And the leeway that's given is during construction. Let's say as they're digging or something has to change, like they have to reroute a pipeline or something like that, or they realize, hey, they can no longer get X amount of apartments because this area of the land may not work, so they have to remove it off the PUD and stuff like that. Little variances but they can't add more. They can take away, or they can kind of reroute little things, but ultimately this is solidified. So it's not changing, or like it was said, like how it's a blank slate. There are requirements he absolutely has to do, like that light. So right now the city doesn't have any plans to put a light in, but because of this, there will be a light that will make it safer for people to get out of the neighborhood and the street as well. And I mean, if anything, that's like one of the bigger benefits I think you guys will get, because it'll make it that you guys can get out of the area safer when that light comes in. It's kind of what I just kind of wanted to let you know. That's my thought process on that area, more than anything. I mean, you can ask me any questions, but yeah.
Councilperson Streetman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with everything that the previous council person said. You know, we have been looking at this for some time. Also serving on the Regional Planning Commission, this isn't my first time even voting on this. And as you heard me say, I originally was not in favor of the plan, but I did like all the changes that were made. And I know you referenced a particular restaurant that you would love to have across the street. But where I'm going with that one may not happen, you know, based on that's a national chain, that type of thing. However, this development is going to have different business opportunities within there. As was mentioned, you know, you could have a restaurant, so you might have a local small business that opens a restaurant in there that you might like even more and be right there across the street for you to go to. So, I mean, there's more into this than just the apartments. There's really been a lot of thought put into this. And like I said, they spent a great amount of time sitting down with the actual staff at the Regional Planning Commission, really trying to work through this and, you know, kind of key into exactly what it needs to be. And I too am one that's in favor of your planned communities, because what you see is what you get. And for me, another thing I love about it is that you can work, live, and play right within that same community. You've got the grocery store that's right there, allowing residents to be able to walk over there. So I think that kind of eases things. And of course, our street department was very much involved with the process as well to ensure the widening there with P Ridge, the street light that's going to go in there. I mean, they were involved every step of the way trying to get Clarksville taken care of and allow this development to still be able to happen. So, I mean, there was a lot of people that were involved in this process, and a lot of thought was put into it.
Councilperson Reynolds.
Yeah, I just wanted to tell you that if you would like, I would like to reach out to you privately. I know this is a lot on the floor. So after tonight, you kind of think about it, and then I would like to maybe either have a conversation or sit down and talk to you.
Certainly. Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Davis? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Anyone else in the audience wish to speak against ordinance 142? If you would give us your name and address, you have 5 minutes.
My name is Glenn Lopez. I live at 509 Reading Drive. Council members, Mr. Mayor, thank you for letting me speak. I am completely against this. I just moved here from Hawaii, where these PUDs have been popping up like crazy. And all this has done is increase crime, traffic, and volume of people moving through that area. You want to take an entire complex that's going to put at least a minimum of maybe 1,000 people in that area, that one small area behind Publix. But we're going to get a park. But we're going to get a street light. But we're going to get a sidewalk. What about the real infrastructure? A turning lane? What's that going to do for anybody? Nothing. Townhomes on one side, townhomes on another. What's a turning lane going to do except get us into the apartment complex? Sure, the street light, I've been moaning about that for months. We need a street light on 101st so we can get out of there without having to wait 15, 30 minutes or, God forbid, a wreck where we're stuck there for 2 hours. P Ridge is the only road for some of these neighborhoods to get out. But you want to build an apartment complex, increase traffic, crime. We just had an arson. You're going to tell me there's not going to be any more crime with more people coming in there? Why make this decision? Put something that shuts down at least. Because yes, there will be small businesses there, but that's also going to increase trucks, delivery people, people coming in to work, because the people who are living there aren't going to be the ones working there. They're probably already going to have jobs. It's going to be people without jobs coming in, taking these jobs, and then what are they going to have? They're going to have to drive in. Oh, well, don't want to get on 101st. I'm going to be late. I'm going to take Sequoia, or I'm going to take P Ridge. I'm going to take Old Trenton to the back of P Ridge. All this traffic, and all we're going to get is one street light, one turning lane with townhomes over here. Townhomes over there. I don't get it. Well, why does this seem like a good idea? You want to just stack all these people. Schools. I've heard from fellow community members that their schools have been redistricted 7 times. 2 of the schools in our immediate area are at 90 or 80% capacity. You want to build something there? Build a charter school. That'll make you money too. I don't understand why apartments and just stacking people there is the best plan for this. I understand. Development has to happen. It needs to happen. This is the 4th largest city in Tennessee. Fastest growing city in Tennessee. Understandable. Gotcha. Make sure the infrastructure can keep up. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez. Any questions for Mr. Lopez? Thank you, sir. Okay, I'm sorry, Mr. Lopez, we do have a question. Councilperson Smith, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for coming forth, young man. Do you realize that we do have a Transportation 2020 Plus plan that is in the making, and streets are going to be widened? We are working as hard as we can and as fast as we can. Are you aware of the 2020 Plus Transportation plan?
I was not, but I will look into that. But as somebody who's lived in big cities and all across this great country, I can understand that city plans are just that until they're actually put into motion.
It costs money to do it, and
Yes,
it
I do.
costs planning.
Yes, I
And
do.
so we just can't jump into it, without planning.
I
and
understand
making,
that, but
quick
until
decisions.
rubber meets the road, I can't hold you to that.
Well, the
I
rubber
can't
has-
expect that to do anything for me
But
or my
yeah,
community.
It will help you. And then you can think about it. Traffic will die down because the Publix is there. Everybody don't have to go to Madison Street to get to Publix. You see what I'm saying? You have a Publix in your neighborhood.
Yes, but at least Public gave us access from P Ridge and Trenton.
And then
We can get through there without having to jump on 101st or stack up waiting to get on 101st so we could go there. It's taken some of the pressure off Sequoia and P Ridge, yes. But again, one turning lane, one street
but the
light
street's gonna be widened on Pete Ridge. Don't forget that.
to one turning lane.
No.
I've seen the concept art. It's one turning lane
Well, just
and
remember.
just to the end of his property.
Just remember, the Transportation 2020 Plus plan is in the plan. So just remember to look at that. And we understand what you're saying, believe me. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilperson Marquis, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. So as someone who's come from a far larger city than this, I can actually sit down with you and and discuss some of the street projects if you'd like.
That,
Yep.
I would appreciate that, but I understand large cities. I was born and lived in Chicago myself, so.
I'm from
I-
New York City. I know.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Lopez? Thank you, sir, very much. Our
Thank
city
you for your
code,
time.
you're welcome. Our city code allows if you spoke in favor of ordinance 142 and wish to offer rebuttal, we have space for one person and you would have 3 minutes. Anyone wish to offer rebuttal? All right, thank you. We're now ready for second item, ordinance 143, 2022-23, amending the zoning ordinance and map of the city of Clarksville application of Tanner Properties. Anyone in the audience wish to speak in favor of ordinance 143? If you would give us your name and address, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mayor. Rosemary Kelsey's attorney and agent for the Tanner Properties. Address is 1811 Memorial Circle. And I'm available for any questions for
And-
this rezone.
Any questions for Ms. Calcese? Councilperson Streetman, you're recognized.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, Ms. Calcese. I appreciate you being up here to speak. I have some questions for you. Can you talk a little bit about what, and I don't know, Mr. Powers may be planning to speak behind you, I'm not sure. Can you talk a little bit about the plan that is, what he has planned there for that area?
Yes, so the current property is zoned for R1, and you guys may remember that it did come up for approval. There's concerns on Rossview Road, as everyone knows, with traffic, and adding another injection of an R1 or something similar was going to foul the traffic study and increase the issues. So the Tanner's property is interested in doing a rezone to doing storage on the rear of the property and then retail support on the front of the property, which is a split zone, and that's a little bit unique to the Montgomery County, but it's very often used in other larger municipalities. The main purpose of that is this retail, the storage in itself and the retail in the front will act as a supporting role rather than another residential injunction, or excuse me, insertion to support the current residential area that's around.
What type of storage will it be? Are these smaller storage units? Will this allow for vehicles to be stored there? What type of storage is it that's intended?
I think it would, I don't think that the concept's finalized, but it would be designed for like residential use. So people with overages from their personal homes or similar to the other ones around in the area, the store lots. So I think a vehicle may be an option, but I know that's a different, unique style of storage in that particular. It has to be designed differently. But from the structure side, it would be cosmetically sound to the area.
I can tell you, I mean, I voted in favor of this at the Regional Planning Commission meeting. I spoke in favor of this last week, but since then I have gotten some feedback. I know it's not located directly in my ward, but it's right there. I mean, it's across the street from what's my ward. And I know there's been some concerns. And my concern a year ago when it was R4 was the substantial traffic that it would add during the same time that everybody else that lives over there. So my thought process had been this would allow traffic at a different time than what the residential would. But again, I am getting some feedback of some concerns. Is there any way possible, I know there are deadlines involved with contracts, would there be a possibility of deferring this for 1 month? Now that could delay things, but to allow you and the developer to potentially have a public hearing or a public meeting so that residents in the area could learn a little bit more about what the plan is there. And I know I'm not again, it's not in my ward, but it is in my fellow council members' ward, and because that's a divider right there. Is that something that you all would entertain? And is that possible with contract deadlines?
We would need an extension on the contract, so as it stands, no. But I would tell you or offer to you that R1, how it sits, would do nothing but harm that entire area, even if you used it for its current use as we stand. The C4, C5 actually offers a reduction in the traffic study, and we've done a comparison of that traffic study from C4, C5 to R1, R4, and it is a significant reduction. So without going to C4, C5, the property is essentially not usable because if R1, R4 does not promote good sound traffic in that area, even though it is passable by law, it is not like an F rating, but it is a negative impact, and that's not what they want to do that for. In addition to that, the adjoiner to that property will not grant another access easement, if you remember. So you have one access point, and that's it. That's the highest. That's all it can be used for.
Yeah, I understand, and I do hate that they won't allow that access because that would make life kind of a little bit easier for
Yes, ma'am.
everybody, but,
Yes, ma'am.
okay. Thank you for your time, I appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilperson Shekina, you're recognized.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening.
On this property, and I know you said you don't have a plan yet, but do you have an estimate of how many levels this thing is gonna be? You know, how
We
many-
have an
many
overall
stories?
conceptual plan that should be in your packet because it's submitted. If not, I'm happy to send it to you this evening for your review.
Can you tell me how
Yeah,
many?
just like one floor standard storage. There's more in the area called store lot. And I think there is a height ordinance over there as well. So it would be generally one story or they're about 15 feet high on the inside. Don't quote me on that though, 'cause I'm not constructurally.
And another question
person.
from some of the residents, can it be a right turn only?
I think we'd have to talk to the street department about that, and see if that's permissible and if that's safety, if that's fine. So we could look into it, but I couldn't make that determination.
Because in lieu of that, I'm like my fellow council member, on behalf of the constituents, to push this back for 30 days. So you can give us some better ideas of what's going on with this, because we don't want to vote for it, and then we don't know what's going to happen. Right?
Sure. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilperson Smith, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, ma'am. Do you realize that this is near Rossview School?
Yes.
And you realize about the traffic out there and how it was backed up? It'd be backed up at certain times of the hour?
That's why we want to change it from R1 to a C4, because the R1 would do nothing but increase the issue, which is it's currently zoned for.
I mean, what, so you changing the zone, I mean, how is it gonna decrease the traffic?
Residential generally does have a higher increase unless it's for higher retail traffic. And storage is, as Ms. Streetman and I were just talking about, storage is reduced traffic times. It's more drop off, leave. They don't keep on returning like they would at a Chick-fil-A or a Walgreens. And the retail in the front is support retail for the storage in the rear of the parcel. So your traffic is significantly reduced. And on the traffic study, in comparison from R1 to C4, C5, there's a significant reduction.
Okay, but I heard you also said there would be some retail stores maybe?
Support retail potentially in the front, yes.
Okay. I have to go along with my other two colleagues who said that they may postpone this
Yes,
until we
ma'am.
look into it because we did get a thorough request to vote against this based upon the school system. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilperson-
Based upon the school system, there wouldn't be any increase in the school system.
The traffic for Rossview, ma'am.
Okay.
In the Rossview area. It's a narrow road on Power Road and Rossview, very narrow road.
Yes.
Councilperson Red, you're recognized.
Thank you. Since this is an ordinance, it will require two readings, so it'll be the second one before it's passed into law, and to be codified will be the first Thursday of next month. Between now and that time, you think you would be able to have, if we decide not to postpone, you would have that month before the second reading. Would that give you time to meet with the parents, or, sorry, the neighbors there?
Yes, sir. We could certainly do the town hall meeting and ensure everyone is aware of what the plan is, and then also answer some other questions on height, location, quantity, density, and flesh that out. Then everyone would have all those questions answered at that time.
Great, because I would be leaning for, getting it, the first reading out of the way if possible. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Reed.
Any other questions? Thank you very much. Anyone else in the audience wish to speak in favor of ordinance 143? Mr. Powers, give us your name and address. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Clay Powers, 3195 Highway 76. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. I'm happy to answer any questions that I can within reason tonight. However, I would like to point out that a different developer brought this same parcel before the city council last year, and it was supported by the staff and the planning commission for C2 and R4, is my understanding. And the city council decided that it was too much traffic, too much was going to be, in that parcel, in that location. So what we're proposing to do is a development there that is predominantly storage. About 7 acres of it is the C5 portion of it. And with storage, we typically will, some days we have 0 cars. People put their stuff there and they don't come back often. Probably an average day we get, 4 or 5 cars maybe. So it's a very, very low traffic situation. The retail that would be in the front of the storage would be the type of retail that would support the area. It's not going to be a large facility that's a heavy traffic draw. This is more along the lines of the small shops and that type of thing. So, and the majority of the people that visit those type of facilities or businesses are people that live in the surrounding area. I did see on your information there where the school system made a comment about the schools and the overcrowding. Well, this proposal only supports what is already there. Whereas if you build more houses, you build apartments, you build anything like that, condominiums, then you are putting more pressure on that school per se. But what we're proposing is a service type of facility. But beyond that, happy to answer any questions that I can.
Thank you, sir. Councilperson Streetman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Powers. I'm going to ask the same question. Would you be willing to be a part of a public meeting to try and give information more to to the residents that are directly affected by this?
Councilman Streetman, I'm more than happy to. My only struggle in this situation is the seller doesn't understand. She this is family land that goes way back, and she wants to get to a closing, and I respect that of her. She just doesn't understand, why, what happened last year with the other developer, and she's trying to get to the finish line, and I do respect that. If you decide to postpone it for 30 days, I understand that. I respect that. I don't have a problem with it. I don't know where she is on that. If it's possible that you would consider, us meeting in between the first and second readings, then in any way I can make myself available, I'll be glad to.
And I'm understandable to that and what was said by a previous council member. I recognize how that was why I asked the question right out the gate, as far as because I didn't want to do anything that could cause issues, and I do understand we do have a second opportunity. I just wanted to ask you if you and I could work together here pretty quickly to be able to coordinate something to allow them to get that information. And also, this is not your first go at the storage business. So you're very familiar with this process, the traffic that's involved, and everything that goes along with that. I know one thing we have to be concerned about when we make zoning decisions is that although we have to go based off of what somebody tells us, we have to recognize what else can go in there. But again, this is not something that's new to you. So, I mean,
yes, ma'am.
And likely you say that this is what you're going to do. You're going to carry forward with that and build the storage.
That's pretty much all I do now. So, that's the intent.
All right. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. And should this make it through the first reading, I will be reaching out to you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Councilperson Shekinah, you're recognized.
Yes, sir. Same question regarding a right turn only. Would that be something that you would consider?
Councilman, I'm not sure how that would work. That lane, that road has already been widened in that area recently by the state. And the state will not give us a second we cannot have a entrance and an exit. The state only allows one entrance for that
Yeah.
whole parcel.
That's what I'm
So-
talking about, your entrance and your exit. When you exiting out of there, instead of trying to turn left, where all the traffic is heading toward the school and everything else, can you just make it right turn only?
See, sir, I don't know what the city street department or the state would require of that. So I don't want to tell you something and not be able to follow through with it. Does that make sense?
It's fair enough.
And on top of that, to go along with that, there is a red light very near there,
Right.
but it's not, we can't assess that, or that cannot be accessible. But the more people we get going toward the interstate and get away, versus sending them towards downtown, to me, that would be a positive to, alleviate traffic, because the road is 5 lane, if you count the turn lane in the middle currently. So, if they go left, they've got 5 lanes, just like down Riverside Drive, for example, or Wilma Rudolph, which I guess is now 6 maybe.
Well, some of the residents that reached out to me, their concern is it's already hard trying to turn left. Now you're gonna put something else there where you have traffic turning to the left. So that's why they wanted to know, could it?
Yes, sir.
And they would probably be okay if you can do a right turn only.
Gotcha, I
That
understand.
would quell a lot of the concerns.
I would have to approach, the engineers would have to approach the state and the city to see what they think on that. I don't want to tell you something that I don't follow through with. I can't, it's above my authority. Does that make sense? So.
Yeah, makes sense, fair enough. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Powers? Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone in the audience wish to speak against ordinance 143? We're now ready for item C, ordinance 144, 2022-23, amending the zoning ordinance and map of the city of Clarksville, application of Ava Homes. Anyone in the audience wish to speak in favor of ordinance 144? Anyone in the audience wish to speak against ordinance 144? Item D, ordinance 145, 2022-23, amending the zoning ordinance and map of the city of Clarksville, application of Brian Johnson. Anyone in the audience wish to speak in favor of ordinance 145? Anyone in the audience wish to speak against ordinance 145? Next item, item E, ordinance 147, 2022-23, an ordinance amending the city zoning ordinance of the city of Clarksville, Tennessee as it pertains to R3 and R2D zoning classification. Anyone in the audience wish to speak in favor of ordinance 147? Anyone in the audience wish to speak against ordinance 147? Mr. Blick, give us your name and address. You have 5 minutes.
Jonathan Blick, 2015 Mossy Oak Circle. Appreciate everybody coming out tonight. I know we're all rather be at home with our family, but I appreciate y'all. But, I just have some concerns about this. We develop a lot in the R3 area with the infill and just some amendments that I would recommend. And I think that they're plausible, definitely something you should look into. So just the existence of the duplexes that are currently in effect. So the changes that y'all want to make is any 2-family dwelling that was legally in existence in an R3 or R4 district prior to November 10th, 2010 may be replaced or enlarged or on the same lot parcel of tract of land. So right now, if this is read into effect, anything created after, so 13 years later, that goes kind of against the current zoning, if it gets burned down, it's no longer be able to be replaced. So, to my understanding. Another thing is that the minimum lot width for R3, the 2 and 3 family dwellings shall be the following: 65 feet at the front at the building setback for 2 family, 80 feet building setback at the 3 family. What we're reading into effect as well is the R2D is a 50-foot lot setback, and an R4 is a 50 lot setback for duplexes. So why are we jumping and making a minimum lot width for R3 to 65 feet? Why are we gaining 15 feet, making them be 15 feet wider if it's acceptable for something that's supposed to be less density and also higher density? Then why are the one in the middle? Because we all know that R1 is for single family, R2 and R2D are supposed to be a little bit more dense. R3 is a little bit more dense than R2 and R2 and R2D, and then R4 is supposed to be more dense than R3. So, I just think that reading this into effect, somebody's losing equity somewhere. I've got 6 examples of duplexes or triplexes that were on the market at one time, and we're currently building 2 more. So these are just the ones that I'm aware of that are going to be affected by this, the November 10th, 2010. Why are we doing that date instead of currently what's legally built? Just to reiterate myself, I believe that R2D and R3 and R4 should have equal lot width amongst themselves. Does anybody have any questions for me?
That's my line. Councilperson Reynolds, you're recognized.
So, first for you, sir. So what you're saying, instead of 2010, it should be 2023?
Correct, because if it burns down or anybody has a problem with the duplex that's there, if it burned down, you couldn't build it back. So that's kind of taking the equity away from that lot value. Currently, a duplex lot is worth, $50,000, but as a single family lot, it's going to be $25,000 or somewhere around that.
So I'd like to redirect the question to our acting city lawyer, if I may.
Well, we're in public hearing right now, so.
So wait.
Wait till we get back into regular session.
All right. Then, yeah, I think that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Blake? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else in the audience wish to speak against ordinance 147? Our city code allows rebuttal. If you are in favor of ordinance 147 and would like to offer rebuttal in favor of ordinance 147, we have room for one person, and they have 3 minutes. Anyone wish to offer rebuttal? Okay, we are done with the public hearing. Councilperson Streetman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. I move we go back into regular session.
Motion been made to revert back to regular session without objection. We're now in regular session. Councilperson Streetman.
Thank you. As a reminder, all motions upon the advice of legal counsel shall be for approval. Ordinance 142, 2022, 23, first reading, amending the zoning ordinance and map of the city of Clarksville, application of Burt Singletary for zone change on a tract of land fronting on the east frontage of Pea Ridge Road, east of the Sandbar and Pea Ridge Road, and Redding Drive and Pea Ridge Road, intersections from C5 Highway and Arterial Commercial District to PUD Planned Unit Development District. Both the Regional Planning Commission and staff recommended approval, and I so move.
Second. Motion been made and properly seconded in favor of ordinance 142. Councilperson Reynolds on ordinance 142.
I would just like to address people that came to speak against this, that, as I stated earlier, there's 2 votes. So I will vote tonight for this, but I will reach out and have conversations, and there is another opportunity next month. I just want you to know that ahead of time.
Any other comment or question regarding ordinance 142? Councilperson McLaughlin, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. We had a previous zoning case that was in the same vicinity as this, and I spoke against it because of the traffic concerns. And because the traffic signal is part of this, I will be voting for this. And I just want to say that I wish that all developers, when they had zone changes, would do planned unit developments. Because so many times we sit up here and we try to imagine what a zoning case, if it's a C4, C5, what could go there. And we have no idea. people can tell us what they think they may put there, but it could change. So I appreciate Mr. Singletary doing your due diligence and actually being transparent with what is going there, so that everybody knows. It's not a surprise. It's organized, it's well thought out, and I know that the neighbors across the way have concerns about it, but come to my side of town. We would love to have a planned unit development over there, so thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other comment or question regarding ordinance 142? Seeing none, hearing none, are you ready to vote? All members, please cast your vote. Every member voted. Any member wish to change their vote? Madam Clerk, take the vote.
8 yes, 4 no, 0 abstain.
Ordinance 142 passes. First reading. Councilperson Streetman, you're recognized.
Ordinance 143, 2022, 23, first reading, amending the zoning ordinance and map of the city of Clarksville, application of Tanner Properties for zone change on a tract fronting on the north frontage of Rossview Road, 1,000 plus or minus feet west of the Richview Road and Powell Road intersection from R1 Single Family Residential District to C4 Highway Interchange District / C5 Highway and Arterial Commercial District. Both the Regional Planning Commission and the staff recommended approval, and I so move.
Motion been made and properly seconded in favor of ordinance 143. Any comment or question regarding ordinance 143? Councilperson Streetman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate the conversation that we had with the people that spoke in favor of this earlier tonight. I will go ahead and vote in favor of it because I don't want to hold up anything and not give the council a chance to be able to vote on this. As was mentioned, we do have another opportunity to vote on it, but I will be getting together with the developer as well as hopefully making it a meeting with my fellow council member that we can publicly notice to avoid any issues with that, but to allow the public the opportunity to be able to come hear from the developer. I was one that was adamantly against the previous zoning request a year ago because of everything that was involved with the R4. I was afraid it would add a lot of traffic that would be the same traffic timing as everyone else that already lives in the neighborhood. So again, mainly want to let the residents in Ward 10 know why I'm voting to move this forward, and then we can see what happens a month down the road. Thank you.
Any other comment or question regarding ordinance 143? Seeing none, hearing none, are you ready to vote? All members, please cast your vote. Every member voted. Any member wish to change their vote? Madam Clerk, take the vote.
7 yes, 5 no, 0 abstain.
Ordinance 143 is adopted. First reading. Councilperson Streetman.
Ordinance 144, 2022, 23, first reading, amending the zoning ordinance and map of the city of Clarksville, application of Ava Homes LLC for a zone change on property fronting on the south frontage of Caldwell Lane, 225 plus or minus feet east of the Caldwell Lane and Robert Street intersection from R2 Single Family Residential District to R6 Single Family Residential District. Both the Regional Planning Commission and the staff recommended approval, and I so move.
Motion been made and properly seconded in favor of ordinance 144. Any comment or question regarding ordinance 144? Seeing none, hearing none, are you ready to vote? All members, please cast your vote. Every member voted. Any member wish to change their vote? Madam Clerk, please take the vote.
12 yes, 0 no, 0 abstain.
Ordinance 144 passes. First reading. Councilperson Streetman, you're recognized.
Ordinance 145, 2022, 23, amending the zoning ordinance and map of the city of Clarksville, application of Brian Johnson for a zone change on the north frontage of Dover Road, 375 plus or minus feet east of the Dover Road and Stephanie Drive intersection and the east frontage of Stephanie Drive, 885 plus or minus feet north of the Dover Road and Stephanie Drive intersection from C2 General Commercial District to C5 Highway and Arterial Commercial District. Both the staff and the Regional Planning Commission recommended approval, and I so move.
Motion been made and properly seconded in favor of ordinance 145. Councilperson McLaughlin, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. This isn't my ward. I have had an opportunity to speak with Mr. Johnson and actually look at the property, and my concerns have been addressed. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comment or question regarding ordinance 145? Seeing none, hearing none, are you ready to vote? All members, please cast your vote. Every member voted. Any member wish to change their vote? Madam Clerk, please take the vote.
12 yes, 0 no, 0 abstain.
Ordinance 145 passes. First reading. Before we move on, two things. For the record, Councilperson Little is here. And then secondly, Ryan, can you make it a little warmer up here? I can't feel my hands anymore. Okay, now sorry. Now we're ready for item E. Councilperson Streetman, you're recognized.
I very much appreciate that. I was freezing over here. Ordinance 147, 2022, 23, first reading, an ordinance amending the city zoning ordinance of the city of Clarksville, Tennessee, as it pertains to the R3 and R2D zoning classification. Both the Regional Planning Commission and staff recommended approval, and I so move.
Motion been made and properly seconded in favor of ordinance 147. We have amendments, and I will call your attention to amendment number 1, the Smith Amendment. Councilperson Smith, you're recognized on your amendment.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. To the council, speaking about ordinance 147, 2022-23. I spoke with the consultant, Mr. Ed Holmes, and I also talked with Mr. Tyndall about this amendment. As you see in your package, you will have the area that we're discussing in yellow. You see the small area in yellow. That's the from 4th Street over to Red River in that area. Then you see on the back the other zoning recommendation. Okay. Now, the Ed Holmes consultants prepared and submitted to the City Council the Red River Neighborhood Plan of 2022, specifically for the Red River neighborhood, which was adopted by the council May the 4th, 2023, and accepted by the Planning Commission. However, the new revised proposed R3 zone was changed for the entire city, not specifically and explicitly for the Red River neighborhood for which it was established. On page 21, the Red River Neighborhood Plan under other zoning recommendations states, providing single-family exclusive zones in the neighborhood to provide context-sensitive development standards by creating a new zone, modifying an existing zone. Based on research, the best model for this district would be one that prioritizes single-family detached homes, development with a standard lot size somewhere between the R6, 25 feet, and the R2A, 40 feet. According to the Red River Neighborhood Plan, the core of the plan recommends single-family detached residential homes that comply with the land use maps, lot sizes, and setbacks required by the adopted plan and prohibits duplexes and triplexes. Therefore, to comply, this is the amendment, and align with the Red River Neighborhood Plan that we voted on and approved May the 4th of 2023, the amendment will bring the revised R3 zone into compliance and agreement. Under section 5.1.7, residential uses permitted with conditions. Would like to add number 6. Under 2 and 3 families in R3. Construct and establish detached single-family homes in the Red River neighborhood. Duplexes and triplexes are not permitted in the Red River area from the 4th Street to Red River. North St. John Street, Sampson Street, and north to Craft Street, based on the land use maps on page 29, specified in the yellow color, and page 21 defines the single-family home lot sizes, width, and setbacks. And you will see that attached to your little packet there. And this is the plan that we voted on, and this will put this in, because see, this plan that we, Mr. Turner brought forward to us, and I'm thankful that he did what he did. He said he done it because it was easier to do. But it did not explicitly or align with the Red River Neighborhood Plan. And so to prevent more duplexes and triplexes, we are amending this because we know that he said it for the whole city. So we're amending this to explicitly to fit the Red River Neighborhood Plan that we voted on May the 4th. Thank you.
That's a motion. Do I hear a second? Properly seconded. Okay. Comment or question regarding Amendment 1, the Smith Amendment? Councilperson Reynolds, you have a question about the Smith Amendment? Yes. You are recognized.
So I guess so 5.17, just to be clear, we're adding this paragraph. Just
Yes.
adding this.
Number 6, we added number 6 under section 5.17, residential uses permitted with conditions. We're just adding that to the plan, not taking anything away, because this plan was set out, as I said, for the whole city. instead of, changing the, zone, he just decided to use R3, and that's fine. He revised it and modified it.
Do you know how many lots this will affect
Oh, well, and
in your area?
in that yellow, you see the yellow there on the map? In that
Right.
little
Do you know
small
how many
area?
of those are?
I think it's about, I don't think there's that many homes. Let me see. I think it's not that, but about, I don't have that. Mr. Tyndall, can Mr. Tyndall come up, man, to just, tell us,
Any objection to Mr. Tyndall coming up and bailing us out here?
No, please.
just to. I
Okay,
think
without
it's-
objection, we'll go out of session and hear from Mr. Tyndall.
Could you tell us what the lots, how many homes, in that little area that we have on the map? Is that 300?
There's approximately 300 to 330 lots
330,
in the
okay.
Red River neighborhood, in the area you described.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Tyndall.
Do you have
Councilperson
is there a
Reynolds?
copy of the ordinance the amendment I could see?
Okay.
Just to keep.
Okay, do you have one? I'm sorry, Mr. Tyndall, I didn't give you
Extra
one. I'm
floating
so
around.
sorry. Here's one for him.
We got one.
I'm sorry.
Thank you, Councilperson.
Thank you.
Councilperson Reynolds, you have the floor.
But Mr. Tyndall, how many? But this is saying that we cannot do duplexes and triplexes. So, is that like 15, 12? How many lots in that area are actually duplexes and zoned for duplex?
We got a lot of them in there, yeah.
Let me just read this amendment real quick here.
I think I got it. Hold on.
So the sponsor of this, we spoke last week prior to the planning commission meeting and prior to the first reading or first presentation here last week. And
It's 11.
per the current R3 regulations that the planning commission has brought forward, there are still 11 lots in the entire neighborhood that could have a triplex on them. Now, we didn't go out and ground truth and say, is it or is it not built upon, because some may already have a house or a duplex on it. But it got it down from upper 20s to down to 11 total lots for triplexes that are available. That means a lot that would be 80 feet or wider and over that 12,000 square feet still.
Okay, and so section, are we voting on just section 5.17 and then we're
Yes.
gonna separately vote on the 3.1, the setback?
No, this is all one amendment.
Just one amendment.
So while he's here, can I ask?
Sure, you have the floor.
So-
Mr. Tyndall has your attention.
So I have the 70 feet to replace the 65 feet setbacks. Did we change that or are you, I'm a little,
Well, it's right here.
No, I see
Mr.
that,
Tyndall,
Mr. Tyndall, you want
let
to-
Mr. Tyndall.
The intent of the ordinance that the planning commission brought back reintroduced the 2010 lot sizes for R3, which was the 65 for a duplex and 80 feet for a triplex. In 2010, those numbers were wiped out, and over time, it's been assumed to be 50 feet. So we came back now and said 30 feet for single family, which back in the day was actually 50 feet. So it's a little less to be more with the times of some of the smaller urban building. We kept the older two sizes of 65 and 80. I do understand, well, I won't expound on that. That's the answer.
so can so is that tied to the earlier conversation about if the building goes down and it was built after 2010?
So
I mean, from
I
Mr.
looked at that. I do believe that may have been an oversight in our ordinance that we kept the old 2010 date. So that would
Okay,
mean
that's a
right now, if this passes, anything that was built between 2010 and 2023, if it burnt down and it was not a legal lot anymore, could not be returned to its current state. If any amendment passes, or if we get to a point where none of the amendments pass tonight, I would ask someone to make an amendment to possibly send it back to correct that date to July 2023.
And that was my question to Mr. Bittner, based on a conversation that we had, Mr. Tyndall, was if we send it back, can you make more changes or can you only address what we send back? That was I think we weren't sure of that.
I've been trying this week to get an answer to that. I believe we could make changes that are something like that, where we're all in agreement. If we're making a change that no one's in agreement with, you have the opportunity to amend it and send it back again. I don't want to get into a cycle where we're both sending it back and forth and back and forth. So
Right, so it's better
if something
tonight
is
to
in
make
our
that-
lap already to fix one thing, I believe the planning commission could amend the rest to correct that. We would alert you to say this also changed, but I think that would be a good change to make.
Okay, so we should go ahead, I'll go ahead and, or somebody can make that amendment just to make sure it's on the.
Let's get through the other
Yes,
written
the other
amendments first.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's all I have. Thank you for your patience.
Okay, Mr. Tyndall, before you go, I have 3 names on the board. If you want to address a question to Mr. Tyndall, keep your name up there. Councilperson Zacharias, you're recognized for
Thank you,
Mr.
Mayor.
Tyndall.
So you have my copy
Yeah, I'll
right
give-
now, but that's fine.
Okay.
Towards the bottom, one of the changes, it references setbacks being moved from 65, oh, thank you, from 70 feet to 65 feet.
No.
Should I assume that means lot size? I don't think we're talking about 70-foot
The sponsor
setbacks,
is
are we?
asking to take the minimum lot width for a duplex from 65 to 70 feet. So
Okay, so I'm
a
looking-
lot would have to be 5 feet wider than we proposed.
Okay, so yeah, I'm looking where it says section 3.1, add 70 feet to replace the 65 feet setbacks. We're not talking about setbacks, though. We're actually talking about lots.
70 feet lot width at the setback.
Oh, okay. All right. And then my second question, I understand, it sounds like what we're being asked to consider is injecting or language that applies to one specific neighborhood in as a portion of the zoning ordinance that applies to the whole city. And I don't know if this is a question for you, Mr. Tyndall, or for the city attorney. Is that an appropriate place to try to make that change, or should that effort be a separate action aside from this ordinance that we're trying to do? And
So you are correct in assuming that's what the sponsor's trying to do, is make this, first of all, the ordinance brought forward is applicable citywide. The additional language here would further refine it just to that. I would not use the plan in the ordinance to call out that. I would word it slightly different, but to each their own. The proper method for this would be to do an overlay zone just for the neighborhood. We considered that early on. However, we felt that there's a lot of neighborhoods in Clarksville that want their own 1 or 2 little changes, whether it's a historic district or other neighborhoods in the city that want one thing or another. We felt that would be a slippery slope to go down, is to give this neighborhood of 300 lots their own overlay. 2 months from now, we're being asked to do it for this neighborhood, then this neighborhood. Overlay zones, not to speak for City Attorney Baker, who's not here, he's not in favor of overlays. They make it very hard on code enforcement because every neighborhood and every zone has all these additional rules. It's better to have one rule for the whole city with few exceptions. The overlays we do have aren't tied to uses, but more design aesthetics. So that's a completely different use of the overlays. So we decided early on not to go down that route, even though that may be the easiest route. We felt to change the R3 because the majority of that neighborhood exists as R3 right now was the appropriate method. Plus, this is issues seen in other R3 neighborhoods around downtown, and there are other, not historical, but legacy neighborhoods around the core of downtown. So it could actually address other issues elsewhere.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilperson's treatment for Mr. Tyndall? Yes, sir. You're recognized.
Thank you, sir. I understand the concerns being brought forward by the sponsor, but especially based on the person we had speaking against this, and recalling that one of my fellow regional planning commissioners was adamantly against this because of the fact he felt as though it decreased the density by making it more difficult to do the triplexes and duplexes. The changes being made are already kind of having that effect, correct? Or already going to, otherwise, why would we have people, against that? Isn't that already what some of these changes are going to accomplish, is likely decreasing the number of triplexes and duplexes in the area?
So the ordinance that we believe we've brought forward increases the opportunity for single family, reduces the opportunity and potentially the value of a few lots out there for duplexes and triplexes. There's 3,100 R3 lots throughout the city, from New Providence, Crossland Avenue area, up through downtown. So there are many different sizes. the Red River neighborhood is not an evenly gridded out neighborhood like maybe Reynolds Street or Daniel Street, where it's pretty much all 50 by 200 or 50 by 150 all the way down the street. So that's why we have some lots that it was hard to write an ordinance that got rid of all of them without making it almost impossible anywhere to build triplexes. And the R3 zone was always intended to be a flexible zone of single family duplex or triplex, depending on the size of the lot. So we've tried to reintroduce that older method. You'll notice since 2010, there hasn't been a lot of development in these R3 neighborhoods until the R6 came around. And this would hopefully reintroduce the older standards that were being used back in 2010 when there was some development going on.
Okay, and then I just want to make sure, understand when you were talking about, potential amendments, it having to go back. I mean, any change is going to, any amendment at all is going to require it to go back. So do we need to vote through all the different amendments, or can we just know that going back and then you have the opportunity to work with council members that may want to make potential changes to it?
I'd rather gather the sense of the council tonight on all the amendments, because I don't want to make an amendment at the planning commission, come up here, and then it gets voted down or it gets amended again further and drags, because every time that's going to happen is going to be another month or two. So I'd rather hear all the amendments tonight. We'll know whether they're all passed or not passed. If they're passed, we'll work with them, and if they're not, we'll have an opportunity to amend the few minor things. But myself and staff, we don't intend to do anything major except correct that one date that's been brought to our attention tonight.
How long do you think before it would potentially come back if there are any amendments?
Depending on the severity, I think we could have it back next month. Get it right on our agenda starting tomorrow. We just set our agenda today, so we have plenty of time to get it on the agenda. And if it's just a minor change, it's just a matter of updating some documents and getting it out and having a public hearing again and going through the whole process at the planning commission. So if it's a lot more in depth of a amendment, it may take us a month to iron out some kinks, but we'll get it back.
Okay, thank you.
Councilperson Redd for Mr. Tyndall.
Yes, sir, Mr. Tyndall. I was just wondering, what are your thoughts on the amendment? And if you're pro amendment, I was just wondering, what's the purpose as it's reading here? The duplexes and triplexes are not permitted in the Red River area from Ford Street to Red River, North St. John, Sampson Street to North to Craft Street. Is it an aesthetic thing, or is there something that they don't like?
I think I will say that
Duplexes or
we
triplexes, the way
stand
they
by
look?
the ordinance we brought you, and I think that's a great question for the sponsor.
Okay.
Councilperson Markey, you're recognized for Mr. Tyndall.
Yes. Real quick question, kind of piggybacking on slightly of what a previous speaker mentioned. In the amendment here, the way that it's worded, 70 feet to replace the 65 feet setback, it may be just wrong wording or something, but my question is, if you increase that, wouldn't it potentially make certain lots non-compliant? Or how would that work?
In essence, what it does, it makes the selection of lots out there that may hold a duplex fewer. Because instead of 65, you gotta have 70 feet.
Okay, but so would the 70 feet work? Because this is amending it to increase that number.
There's a lot of 50-foot lots out there.
Yes,
So
and if
currently, there are some duplexes out there on 50-foot lots, which is why we need to correct that one date so that if there is an issue,
Yes.
they could be replaced in kind. The intent there is to remove that 50-foot lot and go back to 65 feet. However, we feel that with the ability to divide into two 30-foot lots, you could have maybe a 30 and 32-foot wide and do two single-family homes in the same space. You could do one duplex. So it's a little more flexible and gives options to the
Yeah, I understand
seller
that.
and the builder.
I understand. I guess maybe I'm just not explaining it correctly. The 70 feet, since you said there's a lot that are 50 feet, if we increase this number to 70, obviously those 50-foot lots, they can't grow. So would it make it an issue if you're putting 70 but they're 50 because you're stuck at that
All
number?
it does is reduce the amount of lots that would be available to build a duplex by that much more. I don't know what that number
Okay.
is, but any lot that was 65, if this gets amended to 70, now has to be 70 feet wide to
Okay.
have a duplex. So
I gotcha.
don't know what that number is. It's probably not too many, a handful, a couple dozen.
Okay.
Again, there's 3,100
All right, thank
R3
you.
lots around, so we'd have to run some models on that.
Okay, I gotcha. Thank you.
Councilperson Reynolds for Mr. Tyndall.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I did have another question. So, back, kind of following up with the previous speaker, if you say 70 feet to replace the 65 feet setbacks, right now, we basically go to R6 because that's what we can put in the zone. But my understanding is, as we made these lots a little more fluid, we might get two houses, not R6s. Somebody might do 2 homes instead of 3 because then they don't have to rezone it. But if we make this lot size, we're going back to pushing them R6 or right. Am I reading that correctly?
Every 5 feet you make these lots wider reduces the amount of lots the developers could find to build a duplex in, which makes it harder, which, as you heard earlier, the impression that you're devaluing those lots that are 60 or 65 feet in light of being able to do single-family houses.
Okay.
Councilperson Smith on your amendment for Mr. Tyndall. Do you have a question for Mr. Tyndall? No. Oh, okay. I'll come back to you. Councilperson McLaughlin for Mr. Tyndall.
Thank you, Mayor. I had to scroll through the zoning code to figure out where these section amendments fell, and please correct me if I'm wrong. Section .3.1 is actually general provisions. If this amendment is before us, I just wanted to make sure that that's the proper place to change the setbacks. So it's Chapter 3 Zone District Use Tables, and it's 3.1 is general provisions, and
So the language that's going to be amended is actually under the uses permitted with conditions. So it would be under section 517, because the R3 zone is currently, the R3 zone is a triplex only, and you can do a duplex or a single family if it's a lot of record prior to 2010. The way that this is gonna, in essence, flip this around and say R3 is a single family zone, but you can do a duplex or triplex if it meets those lot sizes, and those are part of the conditions. In the use table, a triplex will go from permitted to permitted with conditions. A single family house goes from permitted with conditions to outright permitted. Therefore, you would then look further down in chapter 517. I'll get back down there. There's a lot of conditional uses.
there are.
So at the end there, right now, it says to do a single family may be placed on a lot of record in R2D, R3, or R4 prior to November 2010. And that's what it currently says. We're deleting that section because single families by right in R3 now. And then at the very end of that section where it says a two-family dwelling may be placed on any lot of record in R3 or R4, which was legally in existence prior to November 10, 2010. A lot of record shall contain a minimum 10,000 square feet for a two-family dwelling and an R4 minimum dwelling of 9,000 square feet. So that 10,000 square feet doesn't change. It's just changing from having to be a lot of record to being, you can actually divide them now or change some lot lines to get that 10,000 square feet.
So I understand what the sponsor's trying to do. My question is the notation of section 3.1. I don't think that's the proper section in the zoning ordinance. That was my question.
So under the amendment, because that's where this is. Yeah, the ordinance right now isn't amending section 3.1. I believe that may have been a typo to say section 5.1.
That was my concern.
I would ask the sponsor on that. Good catch.
Thank you.
Any other comment or question for Mr. Tyndall? Thank you, Mr. Tyndall.
Thank you.
Without objection, we'll go back into session. Councilperson Smith, you're recognized on your amendment.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to answer these, Ward 2. Under that, does not go along with section 5.1.7 for residential uses. This goes under that setback. You see, it says for two family and three families in R3 and R4. And it only pertains to the minimum lot width in R3 for two and three family dwellings shall be the following. And 65 feet at the building setback line for two family dwellings. And this is what Mr. Turner has here in his ordinance. However, I was just saying to make that 70 feet instead of 65. But we can leave it at 65. It's no problem. And we would like to keep it there. But this amendment alone is different. And the reason why we want to prohibit more duplexes and triplexes is because this is small lots in this area. This is a low-income area with single parents who have children with not enough lot size for the children to play. Also, we want to minimize high density in the area. And this is part of the plan that we had voted on May the 4th. We as a council looked at the Red River Neighborhood Plan and we voted on this. Mr. Edward Holmes stood before us, presented the plan. We agreed that the new or revised proposed zone should be explicitly in favor of single-family homes in the Red River area. Because we know that the lot sizes are very small. And that's why R6 did not fit in that area. Because they could not have playgrounds, they didn't have enough yard to play or to have amenities. And so he says here that it should be in between the R6 and the R2A. R6 is a 25 feet and the R2A is a 40 feet. And so Mr. Tyndall decided to make this the R3, use the R3 and revise it so that we could change the context to a sensitive development. And so what we're doing is we have plenty of duplexes and triplexes in the area. We have some being built now on 9th Street. The small area that this encompasses is from this, you see in the yellow. It's a small residential area in the yellow. And it only fronts that. This has nothing to do with Vulcans, nothing to do with Frosty Morn, Austin P. If there are going to be duplexes, if you see in that dark area, the brown area, they're to build out on the edge around the yellow. You see it in the brown and the look like gold. You see it on your map? Yes. And so that's where the duplexes and triplexes will be built, but not in that little small residential area. The land is so small in that area. And we're trying to make it single family as it was. We already have enough duplexes and triplexes. So the consultant advised us in the Red River Plan that we would build around the edges. And we all accepted this plan on May the 4th. And so this is just to make it explicitly for the Red River neighborhood, which the R3 that is proposed now does not speak to that. And so we're just trying to bring it into line with what we have already voted on. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilperson Reynolds on the Smith Amendment.
Yes, Mayor. So I would like to make sure that that the amendment only changes within the Red River. So I appreciate that, and because it's only 11 lots, and because I did speak to other builders and some of them said that if this new ordinance passes, sometimes they'll build 2 instead of R6. So I do appreciate the flexibility. But I would like to a motion that we delete section 3.1, add 70 feet to replace the 65 feet setbacks.
Okay, you've heard the motion to amend Smith Amendment number 1 by deleting section 3.1, which is adding 70 feet to replace the 65 feet setbacks. Okay, so we're on the amendment to the amendment. Councilperson Markey, did you wish to address the amendment to the amendment? Councilperson Smith, did you wish to address the amendment to your amendment? Okay, anyone wished to address the amendment to the amendment? Okay, you are recognized
Okay,
on the amendment to the amendment.
I agree that we should go ahead and delete that because it doesn't go along with this amendment. I was looking at, and as I was talking to Mr. Tyndall, we were looking at the 2-family, the 3-family homes when we proposed the setbacks for 70. We can keep that at 65 feet.
Okay, you've heard the explanation. We have a motion to amend the amendment. Okay, we're voting on the amendment to the Smith Amendment 1 to delete section 3.1. All members, please cast your vote. Every member voted and member wish to change their vote. Madam Clerk, take the vote.
12 yes, 0 no, 0 abstain.
Okay, the amendment to the amendment is adopted. We're now on the Smith Amendment number 1 as amended, which deletes section 3.1. Councilperson Markey on the amendment as amended. You're recognized.
Okay, so I guess, okay, so the way that, I guess this is written, I guess I'm a little confused because we have the recommendation from the consultants here, which explicitly state that the standard lot sizes should be anywhere between R6, which is 25 feet, and R2A of 40 feet. Therefore, the lot sizes should be 26 to 39 feet, and I think that that's what the goal intention here is of this new zoning or update to it, especially since we're making this R3 more exclusive to single-family homes by right compared to it being duplexes and triplex where they would have to request permission to be that. So it decreases the duplex triplex situation regardless, and I think that's I guess maybe it was misunderstood on the intent initially. I'm not sure. I think it's kind of going against the recommendation, really. That's all I gotta say.
Thank you. Councilperson Smith on your amendment as amended.
Call for the question.
Question's been called for on the amendment as amended. Any objection to the question? Hearing none, we are now voting on the amendment, Smith Amendment number 1 as amended. All members, please cast your vote. Every member voted. Any member wish to change their vote? Madam Clerk, take the vote.
5 yes, 7 no, 0 abstain.
Amendment fails. We are now on the next amendment. I'm not sure who it's from, but this is the one in front of me that has the big chart on it. Is that? Okay, Councilperson Reynolds, you're recognized on Reynolds Amendment number 2. Amendment 2, Reynolds Amendment, excuse me.
Thank you, Mayor. I addressed this shortly last week, and then I had a conversation with Mr. Tyndall and changed a little bit from the previous conversation. I am not changing the intent of this ordinance. I would like to reinforce the updates and provide support for existing guidelines. I've repeatedly heard on this floor that as we infill, contractors will pay for the infrastructure. Sidewalks are infrastructures, but we continue to infill our community without sidewalks by not enforcing our published ordinances and or allowing variances, even when a property could be within 0.7 miles to a school or closer. This means the taxpayers in our city must then pay for the infrastructure later. Last year, we set aside $6 million for sidewalks to schools and communities that should have already had sidewalks, and we have gotten an additional grant of $450,000 from TDOT on top of this. While these are wonderful things for our community, they are using taxpayer dollars to fill in housing areas that should have had sidewalks originally. And I'll remind you, even though we get a grant, that's still our tax dollars. This amendment is utilizing language that is already in this ordinance. I am simply applying number 7, add note 7 to R2D and R3 zonings. we have a new rule since many of our areas have been built, which requires children to walk to school if they live within 1 mile of an elementary or 1.5 miles to school if they live in middle and high school. The only way we can accomplish this is by building sidewalks. So note 7 on the chart on page, if you went back to the original ordinance, note 7 is on actually page 85, and it says sidewalks and or curbing along street frontage may be required at the discretion of Clarksville Street Department. This note is applied on page 85 to R2A. I think this note should be applied actually to all zoning areas. It allows for the street department to enforce sidewalks on existing roads, but waiver them if there are topographic issues preventing building them. Updating the columns on page 86, we should expand the requirements for sidewalks and apply note 7 to R2D and R3 rather than expecting the taxpayers to pay for the infill of our infrastructure. So all I'm doing is adding note 7 onto R2D, onto the columns on R2D and R3. And the language is on the amendment.
You've heard the motion. Do I hear a second? Properly seconded. Any comment or question regarding amendment number 2? Councilperson McLaughlin on amendment number 2.
Okay, so I just, for the sponsor, have a clarifying question. So basically, what you're recommending is taking the language from the bottom of 85, number 7, and also applying that to page 86? Yes. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comment or question regarding amendment number 2? Councilperson Redd, you're recognized.
I just wonder what the legal ramifications could be if you put in the words may and actually require some to have sidewalks and then in some cases not. And I'll just throw that out for the sponsor or council or whoever wants to answer.
Okay, I'll directed that to the sponsor. We'll start with you, Councilperson Reynolds.
So for the record, it is already, I didn't make the sentence. This is an established sentence in our ordinance already on page 85. And I was originally going to put sidewalks along street frontage are mandatory, but that does not allow the street department flexibility to waiver it, for instance, if they're just not enough width on the property to put a sidewalk. And as I said, I did not create that sentence. That is already in our ordinance, and I just am pulling it down the page.
Okay, Councilperson Redd. Is that it? Okay. Any other comment or question regarding amendment number 2? Are you ready to vote on amendment number 2? Every member please vote on amendment number 2. Every member voted. Any member wish to change their vote? Madam Clerk, take the vote.
10 yes, 2 no, 0 abstain.
Amendment number 2 is adopted. We are now ready for amendment number 3. Councilperson Reynolds, is this your amendment as well? Yes, Mayor. Oh. Okay, that's okay. You are recognized on amendment number 3, the Reynolds amendment.
So again, last week, even though it was in our 4.
You're recognized.
Okay, thank you. Even though it was R4, the picture where the setback did not, it was not in with the neighborhood setting, I felt that the ordinance did address it. Again, I am changing, instead of saying new buildings may be erected closer to the road or further, I would like to say must not be erected closer or further from the street line than the minimum or maximum setback as established by the majority of the buildings. The second sentence is really just a clarifying sentence, and I'll just read it for the community. A maximum front yard setback should be equal to the distance from the street of the predominant setback of the majority of the existing houses in the block where the new construction is taking place. The purpose of the maximum setback requirement is to protect the existing houses and property owners from radical deviations in setbacks that destroy the rhythm of the existing neighborhood. Remember that R2D and R3 are mostly for infill. We're not going to build very many brand new neighborhoods, so we want to keep our legacy and historical neighborhoods pretty much congruent, and I just think that it was important to put in a little bit stronger wording.
Okay, you've heard the explanation. Any comment or question regarding amendment number 3? Hearing none, seeing none, are you ready to vote on amendment number 3? All members, please cast your vote on amendment number 3. Every member voted. Any member wish to change their vote? Madam Clerk, take the vote.
6 yes, 6 no, 0 abstain.
Amendment number 3 fails. I see no other amendments. So we are now on, yes. Councilperson Streetman, you're recognized.
I don't have this in writing, but I need to make an amendment to this, as was suggested by Mr. Tyndall. Can we change the 2010 to 2023?
Well, it's going to have to go back to the Planning Commission anyway.
So that
because
they can just do it there?
They can address it there.
Okay, thank you, Mayor.
Okay.
Oh, I make a motion that we send it back to the Regional Planning Commission to make the changes as recommended.
Okay, you've heard the motion, which is to refer ordinance 147 back to the Regional Planning Commission as amended. Any comment or question regarding this motion? Councilperson Reynolds, on the motion to re-refer?
Yeah, just to back up to the previous conversation, there was concern, Mayor, that if we didn't address it on the floor, that legally they could not address it back at RPC if they did not get the direction from us to address it.
I think they got direction. They heard that. Mr. Tyndall, you nod your head yes or shake it no. We got a thumbs up. All right.
Okay.
Okay, we're a good legal tender now. Okay, you've heard the motion to refer this ordinance back to the Regional Planning Commission. All members, please cast your vote. Every member voted. Any member wish to change their vote? Madam Clerk, please take the vote.
12 yes, 0 no, 0 abstain.
The motion passes. We are now ready for the consent committee agenda. All right, let me back up and try this again. We are now ready for the consent agenda. Madam Clerk, read the consent agenda, please.
All items in this portion of the agenda are considered to be routine and non-controversial by the council and may be approved by one motion. However, a member of the council may request that an item be removed for separate consideration under the appropriate committee report. Ordinance 106, 2022-23, second reading. An ordinance amending the official code of the City of Clarksville, apportioning the City of Clarksville for the purpose of electing persons for the office of City Council Member for recently annexed territories. Ordinance 114, 2022-23, second reading, accepting the donation of certain real property from Jeff Burkhart Custom Properties to the City of Clarksville for the purpose of a sewer pump station. Ordinance 115, 2022-23, second reading, accepting the donation of certain real property from MVM Properties to the City of Clarksville for the purpose of a sewer pump station. Ordinance 116, 2022-23, second reading, accepting the donation of certain real property from Griffey Family Partnership to the City of Clarksville for the purpose of a sewer pump station. Ordinance 117, 2022-23, second reading, accepting the donation of certain real property from Matt H. Rudolph, Jr., Credit Shelter Trust B, to the City of Clarksville for the purpose of a sewer pump station. Ordinance 118, 2022-23, second reading, accepting the donation of certain real property from J&N Enterprises to the City of Clarksville for the purpose of a sewer pump station. Ordinance 119, 2022-23, second reading, amending the donation of certain real property from Sango Ridge to the City of Clarksville for the purpose of a sewer pump station. Ordinance 120, 2022-23, second reading, accepting the donation of certain real property from Todd Morris Construction to the City of Clarksville for the purpose of a sewer pump station. Ordinance 121, 2022-23, second reading, accepting the donation of certain real property from Main Street Investments to the City of Clarksville for the purpose of a sewer pump station. Ordinance 123, 2022-23, second reading, an ordinance authorizing the exercise of right of eminent domain to obtain utility easements necessary for gas distribution improvements associated with the High Point Road gas main project replacement. Ordinance 124, 2022-23, second reading, An ordinance authorizing the exercise of right of eminent domain to obtain utility easements necessary for gas distribution improvements associated with the McAdoo Creek Road Regulator Replacement Project. Ordinance 125, 2022-23, second reading. An ordinance authorizing the exercise of right of eminent domain to obtain easements and right-of-way to cross property necessary to construct, operate, own, and maintain the Corporate Parkway Boulevard Extension and associated utilities. Ordinance 127, 2022-23, second reading, amending the zoning ordinance and map of the City of Clarksville, application of Dunlop Regional Holdings and Regional Holdings Richard Garrett Agent for zone change on property located at the intersection of Needmore Road and Centerstone Circle from AG Agricultural District to R4 Multiple Family Residential District. Ordinance 128, 2022-23, second reading, amending the zoning ordinance and map of the City of Clarksville, application of J&N Enterprises for zone change on property located on a portion of a tract south of I-24, north of Tinytown Road, east of Torrington Lane, west of the western terminus of Siegel Drive, from R2 Single Family Residential District to R4 Multiple Family Residential District. Ordinance 129, 2022-23, second reading, amending the zoning ordinance and map of the City of Clarksville, application of Hunter Wynn for zone change on property fronting on the south frontage of Memorial Drive from R3, 3-Family Residential District, to C2, General Commercial District. Ordinance 130, 2022-23, second reading, amending the zoning ordinance and map of the City of Clarksville, application of Rolanda Amos, Richard Garrett Agent, for zone change on a parcel located at the southwest corner of the Woodard Street and Gracie Avenue intersection from R3, 3-Family Residential District, to R6, Single Family Residential District. Ordinance 131, 2022-23, second reading, amending the zoning ordinance and map of the City of Clarksville, application of Elliot Kershaw and Rolanda Amos, Richard Garrett Agent, for zone change on a parcel located at the southwest corner of the Woodard Street and Central Avenue intersection from R3, 3-Family Residential District, to R6, Single Family Residential District. Ordinance 132, 2022-23, second reading, amending the zoning ordinance and map of the City of Clarksville, application of Jimmy Terry for zone change on two parcels located at the southwest corner of Crossland Avenue and Gracie Avenue intersection from R3, 3-Family Residential District, to C2, General Commercial District. Ordinance 133, 2022-23, second reading, an ordinance amending the city zoning ordinance of the City of Clarksville as it pertains to the Downtown Urban Design Overlay District. Resolution 69, 2022-23, a resolution approving an appointment to the Clarksville Arts and Heritage Council, and adoption of minutes for June 1st, June 6th, June 15th, and June 20th.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I'll entertain a motion in a second. Motion been made and properly seconded in favor of the consent agenda. Councilperson Reynolds on the consent agenda.
Yes, I'd like to register a no vote on M, ordinance 127, 22-23, N, November, ordinance 128, 22-23, O, Oscar, ordinance 129, 2022-23, and R, 132, 2022-23. I'd like a no vote.
Councilperson McLaughlin on the consent agenda.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to register no votes on ordinance 128, 2022-23, and 129, 2022-23. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to be recognized on the consent agenda? Madam Clerk, if you would register me as a no on item N, ordinance 128, and ordinance 132, item R. Anyone else wish to be recognized? We're now voting on the consent agenda. All members, please cast your vote. Every member voted. Any member wish to change their vote? Madam Clerk, take the vote.
12 yes, 0 no, 0 abstain.
The consent agenda is adopted. now ready for the Finance Committee report. Chairperson Streetman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. Resolution 61, 2022, 23, postponed June 1st, 23. A resolution authorizing a request from Neighborhood and Community Services to amend its fiscal year FY 2021-2022 Community Development Block Grant CDBG Annual Action Plan 2020-2024 Consolidated Plan. Both the Finance and Neighborhood and Community Services Committee recommended approval, and I so move.
Motion been made and properly seconded in favor of Resolution 61. Any comment or question regarding Resolution 61? Seeing none, hearing none, are you ready to vote? All members, please cast your vote. Every member voted. Any member wish to change their vote? Madam Clerk, please take your vote.
12 yes, 0 no, 0 abstain.
Resolution 61 is adopted. Chairperson Streetman.
Ordinance 141, 2022, 23, first reading, an ordinance to amend the official code of the City of Clarksville pertaining to purchasing and adopting the Tennessee Department of Transportation approved local version of the TDOT consultant section policy for state or federally funded construction and improvement projects. The Finance Committee recommended approval, and I so move.
Motion been made and properly seconded in favor of Ordinance 141. Any comment or question regarding this ordinance? Seeing none, hearing none, are you ready to vote? All members, please cast your vote. Every member voted. Any member wish to change their vote? Madam Clerk, please take the vote.
12 yes, 0 no, 0 abstain.
Ordinance 141 passes. First reading. Chairperson Streetman.
Mine was a lot shorter than the consent agenda, so that concludes my report, Mayor.
All right. For that, we're thankful. All right, we are now ready for Neighborhood and Community Services Committee. Chairperson Shekina, you're recognized.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. For the Neighborhood and Community Services, just a few highlights. We have the bings at the Ellenden train station. They have been replaced. 2 of the 4 pending residential rehabs have been awarded for eligibility, and that will be coming more. We'll come out on that soon. And also the TBRA success was good as far as trying to partner with local business persons and real estate individuals that may be interested in tenant-based rental agreements. And one last thing I want to touch on is, since it's so hot out, the old firehouse has a day shelter, and that's from 8 a.m. through 4 p.m. Every day. They close from 12 to 1. However, there's an overhead there outside that residents or personnel can stay until it opens back up. So again, the old firehouse from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. It's open every day to keep personnel cool. That concludes my report, Mayor.
Thank you, Chairperson Shekina. Any comment or question regarding this committee report? Okay, we're now ready for Parks and Recreation Committee. Chairperson Zacharias, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. The Parks and Recreation Committee met on June 13th, 2023. Items discussed included Bel Air pool survey responses, Exit 4 property, Edith Pettis Park plans, and Billy Dunlop Park Blue Way challenges. To the public, I would encourage you to enjoy our parks, but please be mindful of the signs posted. They are there for your safety. You can expect increased enforcement of some of those signs. I'm happy to report forward progress on the Exit 8 Athletic Complex project, which goes out to bid this month, and the start of the construction of football fields and a basketball court at Edith Pettis Park. Additionally, the city has received clearance from the state to begin construction of a pedestrian bridge at the Red River. This month, the Mayor's Summer Night Lights program will visit Barbara Johnson Park, Burns Darden, and Dixon Park. Summer Night Lights takes place on Tuesday nights, and you can find dates for the event near you at clarksvilleparksrec.com. There's still time to purchase tickets for the Farm to Table dinner happening on July 15th. This event features local cuisine, handcrafted drinks, and live music. I would be remiss if I did not take this opportunity to commend the entire Parks and Rec Department, Clarksville Police Department, Clarksville Fire Rescue, EMS, and everyone else who had a role in planning or carrying out the plan for making this week's Independence Day celebration a resounding success. I would like to offer personal thanks to the Auxiliary Coast Guard for enthusiastically keeping my family and I out of the impact area as we enjoyed the fireworks show from the water. And then finally, this month's Parks and Recreation Committee has been moved to July 18th instead of next Tuesday, and that is at 4:30 in the City Hall conference room. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Any comment or question regarding this committee report? We're now ready for Public Safety Committee. Chairperson Redd, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. The Clarksville Fire and Rescue recently onboarded 3 certified firefighters using the lateral transfer program for the first time. Summer is here, and they want to remind everyone too, in the Special Operations Divisions, they're working with the Parks and Recreation to remind the citizens to be safe on the blueways and the trails. And of course, this time of year is when you have a lot of drowning incidents, so keep that in mind. Building and codes, the NGov Building and Codes has been working tirelessly to get their employees trained up and ready for mid-July release on the new NGov system. This system will help contractors and building codes work together to make the process seamless for all parties involved. They've been working toward this goal now for almost 2 years, and it is here, and they are very excited. They can't wait for the rollout. Clarksville Police Department, as I mentioned at the executive committee meeting, has received statewide award for excellence in policing services. Clarksville Police Department has made a calculated and strong investment in both officers and how they serve their community, and they will be given this award at the Tennessee Municipal League on Tuesday, July 25th at the TML 83rd Annual Conference at the Renaissance Hotel in Nashville. And that completes my report. Thank you.
Good report. Any comment or question regarding this committee report? Now ready for Transportation, Streets, and Garage Committee. Chairperson Smith, you're recognized.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. The transportation report for TSG are as follows. For the month of June, the Clarksville Transit transported 42,763 passengers for the month of June. Demand response for the month was 3,690. There was no report annotated for senior citizens. Please remember to use the CTS Spot app to find out where our buses are at any time. Please, everyone, stay out of the heat and stay hydrated. Okay, we'll move on to the street department. Work orders total for the month of June was 200. Neighborhood streets paved in June for the Campbell Mobile Estate was Eagle Street, Airborne Street, Eagle Court, Huey Circle, Normandy Street, Nam Street, and Bastogne Street. In the Olympic Village, Bradford Alley, Market Street, and Rainbow Street. In the neighborhood street plan for paving in July are in the Olympic Village is Susan Street, Jim Thorpe Drive, Mar Spitz Drive. In the Louise Heights subdivision is Lilybell Lane, Jewel Drive, Yvonne Drive, Kelly Drive, Louise Lane, and Elaine Drive. We will now move on to the report for the city garage. The total number of work orders for the month of June was 525, and the total number of costs for parts was $126,568.03. The total cost for tires was $22,357.97. Citywide gas and diesel total price for unleaded was $98,997. And for diesel, it was $26,776.78. And that was for the month of June, for a total of $125,683.87. Fuel cost for unleaded was $2.70 per gallon. It was a decrease of 3.6 from $2.80. Fuel cost for diesel was $2.59 per gallon, and that was an increase of 4% from $2.58. This concludes our reports, and also our next meeting will be on July 11th at 3:45 p.m. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Any comment or question regarding this committee report? Inadvertently omitted was the Gas and Water Committee. Chairperson Holloman, you're recognized on the Gas and Water Committee report.
Thank you, Mayor. So we had a really good committee meeting. Really nothing out of the ordinary. Normally I'd read y'all all the stats, all the fun stats about Clarksville Gas and Water. That was not available this month, so next month I will be doubling up. So get ready for some fun numbers. But that's all I've got. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Now for the moment you've all been waiting for, under new business, ordinance 146, 2022-23, an ordinance amending the official code of the city of Clarksville, Title III Animals, Chapter 1 Animal Control, Section 3-109, keeping of cattle, horses, sheep, goats, swine, and poultry in residential areas relative to keeping chickens, hens. We have dual sponsors, Councilpersons Holloman and Zacharias. I came to Holloman at the executive session. I'll come to you, Councilperson Zacharias, at first bite.
All right, thank you, Mayor. So I understand that we're all looking at a stack of amendments, and we've all received a lot of correspondence from the community. Again, I just want to reiterate, how about a motion first?
Motion been made and properly seconded.
All right,
Now
thank you.
you're recognized.
I just want to reiterate my intent when bringing forward this this ordinance was simply to extend the same right to own and raise chickens in city limits that property owners have to their tenants if those property owners should agree that their tenants be allowed to raise chickens. And I will defer to everybody else for everything else.
Okay, Councilperson Holloman as the co-sponsor.
Alrighty, so I just wanted to increase the maximum amount of hens from 6 chickens to 8. I see we got some ordinances that suggest some different numbers, and I just want to say this about everything as a whole. The economy is not getting better. I don't foresee it getting better anytime soon. So just keep that in mind. Food prices do keep going up. That might be something that you need to think about. But from 6 chickens to 8, and that's what my part does. That's all I've got. Thank you.
Okay, you've heard the motion and the second. Councilperson Smith on the main motion.
Yes, I have a question.
Okay, before we get to that, I think we have an amendment.
Okay, we'll do that.
Okay, Councilperson Marquis,
Yes.
this will be Marquis Amendment number
Yes.
1. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. So real quick, I do want to apologize to the sponsors for pretty much hijacking their ordinance here. And I do want to assure everybody that nothing that you see on that page is arbitrary. There is logic and reasoning, and I will explain every line by line, but I'd like to make a motion for my amendment.
Motion been made and properly seconded in favor of the Marquis Amendment number 1. You're recognized
All
for an
right,
explanation.
so just going through in very detail, section number 1, as you see in red, I did add quail, and I will explain that further down. But keep going. I wanted to extend it to all single-family lots. Initially, when this was created, in 2012, it only allowed for E1, R1, and R1A, and then it came back to council a year later to add R2 and R2A. Since then, new zonings have been created that are single-family units, and in order to prevent this from constantly coming back over the years to the council to add new zoning, this wording would just clean it up a bit better to just all residentially zoned single-family lots. I conferred with the RPC about zoning, not about the chickens, just zoning specifically, to make sure that was better wording, and that was kind of their suggestion based on what I was asking of them. Again, they have nothing to do with the chickens. It was just the zoning aspect that I wanted their intake on. Number 2, again, because I added quail at the first one, I just scratched that off. Number 3, so this might be a little bit of unsettling, I guess, to some people, but previously to this, it did state that the on-site slaughtering is prohibited. I scratched off prohibited and stated that it would only be allowed for the personal consumption of the household, and that slaughtering for commercial sale is what it would be prohibited. There are people who like to buy chicks that are considered meat birds because of how fast and big they grow, and then they like to raise them for that purpose. And so under the current statute, it would prevent them from doing it, even though I'm pretty sure people do it anyway because you can just buy them down at Rural King. And so this would just allow that, so that way for the household, they can grow their own food organically and be cheaper than buying an organic chicken from a supermarket. And then going to the really big section for number 4, I just wanted to note real quick that on the original ordinance here, the section 4 wording is, it may be an oversight, but it's not correct because the wording is from the original ordinance from 2012. Since then, the ordinance has changed twice, and there is more wording. So if this doesn't pass, I don't know. I think we'd have to confer with our legal on how to get the correct wording on that. But we can talk about that after. So number 4, the section I added in separate housing. So since we're adding quail, all domestic hens should be kept in habitable structures in separate enclosures. On your second page, you'll note a email that I had been in contact with the poultry specialist from the UT Extension and UT of Ag Research, Department of Animal Science. He specifically states that they should be kept in separate enclosures, so that's why that line was added in there. And then moving to section A, I put a section A and section B to give more clarity on the difference between the housing structures. So in that line, I just scratched off chicken just because it's redundant and it cleans up the sentence a little better. Going down a little further, in that paragraph, the enclosure and the coop shall be located in red now behind the home on the rear of the property, 8 feet away from any property line. That line I had received from Buildings and Codes. They believe that it gives it better, it's better to specify the location and to accommodate for certain lots. Like it made it more specific according to them. And then moving to the big one here. So because we're in this amendment, it's extending it to all single families and kind of lessening a bit of the boundary line. It does not mean that all single family lots would qualify. Buildings and Code still has to go out there and look at the lot and then determine, according to this, 8 feet from any direction. And now if you have 10 chickens, let's say, your coop size therefore has to be a certain size, and within measurements, it would disqualify certain homes regardless. And so the next option now would be that for those who have smaller lots, it would be quail. Because, as the next paragraph would read, the quail keeping in a hutch or coop, it should provide at least 1 square foot per quail and shall not exceed 24 square feet. The hutch coop shall be located behind the home on the rear of the property, 4 feet away from any property line. The height of the enclosure shall be no more than 12 inches. The height of the structure that holds the enclosure shall be no more than 6 feet. The hutch/coop shall be covered and enclosed on all sides. So, just so that we have a visual here, I actually brought the board. This is the size of the enclosure that we're talking about. This is a 2 by 3 foot that they would be kept in. It's a relatively small location that would allow for the number of quail that I'm proposing that would fit in a smaller lots. And if you look at the sheet with the coop picture, that's pretty much what it would look like. So you have that one in particular has 2 structures, one on top of the other. Those are the enclosures. Because of how small they are pretty much a foot in height at each a piece, and this depth. And then on that one, like I said, there's 2. So if somebody wants to divide the amount, put 3 at the top, put 3 at the bottom, or all 6, it doesn't matter. That's just an example of what it would look like of how small it is. And then again, referencing back to my email, when I asked the specialist about the size of the flocks and diseases of the sort, he specified that it's extremely low risk with the number of hens that we have, or moving it from 6 to 10 and introducing quail. Now, some people would say, well, it's a slippery slope. Why not this or why not that? Why do we still ban ducks, geese? Well, again, referring back to the specialist, introducing ducks and geese onto the same lot actually increases the risk of disease and avian flu. So you don't want that mixed together. So that's why those are still a no. And then as far as guineas are concerned, the best use of them would be to have them roam free of your yard to get the ticks and fleas. But because we require them to stay in a coop, it just doesn't really make sense because the purpose is not being utilized. And then as far as the noise level is concerned, again, the specialist even states they are a lot quieter than chickens, than the female hens, honestly. And in fact, there are quite a bit of cities across the states that ban chickens but allow quail because of how small they are and the fact that the noise level is so low. They are considered songbirds. So many people don't even know that they're around. They would think it's any other bird in the tree, pretty much. And another aspect is that I went and spoke to Rural King because they sell chicks to see the demand of the sale that they have. In fact, our Rural King here in Clarksville is the #1 in the nation out of 128 stores for chick sales. They have sold over 35,000 chicks this year alone and counting. They have weeks where they sell anywhere between 4,000 to 6,000. So there's a high demand of them, and quail is one that they sell out on the first day within a couple hours. And because of that, there are people who have them within the city who shouldn't. And something that the professor even states is that it is better for us to know that people have them in order to be able to prevent diseases or keep an eye out and track them than to kind of pretend they're not happening. And so moving into the last section here of C, why the numbers? So 6 is currently the standard for a family of 4 to have a decent amount of eggs. However, during the winter time, chickens lay less, if not they end their cycle because less sunlight, less heat. So most chickens just stop laying during the winter, which means that unless the family preserved the eggs during their peak time, they don't have any. Increasing the number to 10 allows the family to have more egg production to set aside for preservation of winter, as well as if they want to rotate their flock, it gives them more flexibility, which the professor also states in his email, that it would allow for them to be able to rotate the flock better or divide the flock from specifically laying chickens to specifically meat birds. They can divide it in half and half or however they prefer. Or if they just want all the eggs, then they can have all the eggs. It's just a better management system for the families. And then as far as with the numbers for the quails, I figured 6 is a very familiar number in this area, and it would be easier to understand with the number 6. So with current situation, inflation, COVID pushed a lot of people to want to grow their own foods. It brought security and certainty to their homes. And again, now a couple of months ago, we're having this crazy egg apocalypse, but people who had chickens were able to get eggs. And if people have quail, they can also, have something. And people, you would say, well, why can't they should just live in an area where they can fit a coop? But the reality is people live where they can afford. They may not be able to afford a house that they have to spend $400,000 to buy compared to one that's $200,000 and fit a coop. It's pretty much giving a better ability for people to feed their families and reduce some of the consumption at the supermarket. As well as Clarksville is a very big homeschool communities, and this is something that many of them actually use to educate their children on animal husbandry, how to raise animals and grow your own food. So I will take any questions. Sorry, I was trying to kind of wrap this up as quick as I could, but yeah, I have any questions.
You've heard the explanation. Councilperson Streetman, you're recognized on the amendment.
Thank you, sir. My fellow council members may not appreciate me on this because it might keep us cooped in here even longer.
Out of order.
There's really a lot to
Yes.
this one amendment.
Yes.
Would it be possible to divide the question on this between the 1, 2, 3, and 4? Because for me speaking, there are some things on here that I'm okay with. There's other things that I'm not, and I feel like that might be better to not have it just because I think others may feel the same way instead of it just going down because there's 1 or 2 things we disagree with.
That's a question to the sponsor.
Okay. I don't have a problem. My only question would be with 1 and 2, they kind of go hand in hand, I would say. So I'm not sure how they would do that.
I would say then if my thought on that would be if number 1 failed, then number 2, I mean, that would just fail again. That would fail as well. So I don't
Okay.
think one would get voted on and the other wouldn't.
Okay.
So I'd like to make a motion to divide the question
Motion's been made to divide the question on the amendment
according just to the numbers.
by numbers, by 1, 2, 3, and 4. Do I hear a second? Motion, it's been seconded. Any discussion on dividing the question of this amendment? Councilperson Zacharias on the, okay. Councilperson Holloman on dividing the question? No? Yes? Okay.
No.
Councilperson Reynolds on dividing the question? Okay. All right. No discussion on dividing the question. We're voting to allow the division of the question. We're not dividing the question. We're just allowing it to happen. So every member, please cast your vote. Every member voted. Any member wish to change their vote? Madam Clerk, take the vote.
10 yes, 1 no, 0 abstain.
Okay, the motion to divide the question passes. We're now ready to take up item 1 on the marquee amendment. So we'll call that amendment 5, excuse me. So this is item 1 on the marquee amendment. The keeping of domesticated hens, female chickens, and female quail shall be allowed in all residentially zoned single-family lots. Do I hear a motion and a second?
Motion.
Motion been made and properly seconded. We are now on item 1 of this amendment. Councilperson Zacharias, on this, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. And, you know, maybe I should have spoken before we voted to divide the question. My concern, and it does apply to this section, is that this amendment as a whole is a radical departure from what we came here to do. So as council members, we had the benefit of seeing this when we got here tonight, but for the general public who have not had the benefit of knowing that this was coming, I think that they deserve to not hear that we are expanding this livestock ordinance so significantly in the paper tomorrow, especially when it's an issue that has been highly controversial and contentious in the past. I think it's irresponsible. So I intend to vote no on each of these questions, and I encourage my colleagues to do the same.
Okay, thank you. Councilperson Little on item 1.
I'm just gonna call for the question.
Question's been called for on item 1. Okay, we are going to put it on the board. We're voting to cease discussion on item 1. Let's give the clerk time to get that inputted. So we're voting to cease discussion on item 1 of the marquee amendment. Okay, every member cast your vote, please. We're voting to cease discussion on item 1 of Amendment 1. Every member requires 2/3. Every member voted. Any member wish to change their vote? Madam Clerk, take the vote.
6 yes, 6 no, 0 abstain.
Motion to cease discussion fails. We're back on discussion of item 1. Councilperson Streetman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to actually propose an amendment to that one. And I don't know if I know normally we do this in writing, but this is a very small amendment that I'd like to make. The word that says female, where it says female chickens and female quail, I'd like to change that to or.
Change the and to or.
Change the and to or, reason being to where it's not quite such a drastic change to where either you could have chickens Or if you have a smaller area and can't have both, it would be or.
Okay, you've heard the amendment to this amendment. Do I hear a second? Been properly seconded. Discussion on changing the and to the word or. Councilperson McLaughlin on that amendment?
No.
Councilperson Marquis on that amendment?
Actually, that is in section 4C where it does say and or.
That would be an and. That means you could have both.
No, so that section for the number one, it's pretty much just a definition. So the keeping of domesticated hens, and it's defining that domesticated hens is female chickens and quails. The section 4C, where it talks about the numbers, that's where it states and or to be able to keep.
I was planning on addressing it there as well.
Okay, sure.
Okay, Councilperson McLaughlin,
Are we back on?
we're back on the and or the or.
Okay, no, sorry.
Okay.
On the main.
Okay, Councilperson Reynolds on the amendment, Streetman amendment, adding the word or, substituting the word or to and.
So piggybacking on a previous speaker, I'm not opposed to this, but it's a lot for me to digest up front. So I don't really, I asked the sponsor, do people usually have both or do they usually have one or the other? I don't know the answer.
I actually reached out to quite a lot of people within the Clarksville chicken community, and that's how I found out that there are people who have stuff that they shouldn't have. I spoke to buildings and codes, and it's difficult for them to even enforce unless obviously somebody complains, but that's not something that people even complain about. What they complain about is roosters, and they complain about renters not being able to have chickens. So it's not even something that they track. And a lot of people also even realize that they're not supposed to have quail in the city. Until I mentioned it, and it was more of a shock to them. And then I kind of got met with a little bit of anger because they don't understand why certain like roosters aren't allowed or a certain amount of stuff, but yet other things are, like people not being cited for noisy dogs kind of stuff. I did not get any pushback for this type of stuff. Many people welcomed it and they actually wanted more, and that's where I kind of drew the line. Yeah.
Okay, Councilperson McLaughlin still,
Mayor, I'll just go ahead and make my comments and then you don't, I'm sorry.
That's
For
okay.
the confusion.
That's all right.
So, I much like a couple of the previous other speakers feel like this is a major substantive change. And, as a whole, I would prefer that this go through the committee process, so that all sides could be discussed. And again, the public could be publicly noticed. So whether these are separated or not, I'll be voting no. I do appreciate the sponsor's work and research on this. As always, you're very prepared, but I do feel like that this is just too much too soon. Thank you.
Councilperson Little, you're recognized.
Thank you. Just in favor of putting the or, only because it can be read as somebody can technically say, well, it says and or, which means I could have 10 chickens and 6 quail hens. So that makes 16 domesticated animals on that property. And then going along with, taking it section by section, I feel like if we're taking it section by section, the whole thing as a whole is drastic, but taking it section by section on what is drastic and what isn't, I think is appropriate for us to vote on.
Councilperson Shekinah, you're recognized.
Yes, Mayor, I make a motion that we send this to committee.
Okay, that's a proper motion to refer this item 1 to the Public Safety Committee.
Yes.
All right, you've heard the motion. Do I hear a second? Properly seconded. Okay, we're now on the motion to refer item 1 to the Public Safety Committee. Councilperson McLaughlin on that motion?
Would it be proper to amend the amendment to send all of the separated items back to committee as a whole?
Okay, that's properly, okay. Okay, you've heard the motion to amend the amendment to send the entire amendment to the Public Safety Committee, and it's been properly seconded. Any comment or question regarding that amendment? Seeing none, hearing none, are you ready to vote? We're voting to refer back to the Public Safety Committee. Councilperson Zacharias,
Just to be clear, Mayor, we are voting to send the amendment.
the entire marquee amendment.
Okay, but the main motion, the main ordinance.
The main ordinance stands.
Good. Down.
Okay.
Yes.
Councilperson Little, you're recognized.
Just to make sure we're doing it right, because I know we had this amendment, then we had an amendment to the amendment. Do we need to take care of that amendment first before we deal with the whole and send it to?
The motion, the motion to refer to committee takes precedence over the motion to take up item 1.
Okay, just make sure.
Okay, thank you for making sure. All right, we're voting on the motion to refer amendment number 1 to the Public Safety Committee. Madam Clerk, whenever you're ready, all members please cast your vote. Every member voted. Any member wish to change their vote? Madam Clerk, take the vote.
9 yes, 3 no, 0 abstain.
Okay, the motion to refer back to Public Safety Committee, the entire amendment number 1 passes. Okay, so we're on ordinance 146 plainly. Councilperson Red, you're recognized.
I was thinking that we were going to do that somewhere in the discussion, but I would like to send amendment 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, and 4.
We just referred the entire marquee amendment back
Okay,
to Public
okay.
Safety.
I just thought, I heard you say item 1 and then it,
Amendment 1, I
Okay,
misspoke. My apology. Okay. Anyone wish to speak on ordinance 146? Seeing none, hearing none, are you ready to vote on ordinance 146? Okay, all members, please cast your vote. Every member voted. Any member wish to change their vote? Madam Clerk, take the vote.
12 yes, 0 no, 0 abstain.
Ordinance 146 is adopted, first reading. Thank you very much. We're now ready for mayor and council member comments. Any councilperson Streetman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. I would just like to say that we will be kicking off our legislative liaison agenda committee meeting here, here soon. Our first meeting will be held on Wednesday, the 19th from 5 to 6 p.m. at City Hall. I also would like to encourage not only members of the city council, but also members of the public to please submit suggestions. You can submit them to myself and or any of our committee members. As you're a council member, I would not recommend that. I would ask you to just submit them directly to the city clerk, but that also applies to the public. And then the city clerk will ensure that I am aware of all those that we have, and we'll do like we've done in the past. We will divide those up among several meetings so that we can bring the experts in. So I would ask you, try and send them in as soon as possible so that we can get the entire schedule prepared for all of the meetings and work through them all quickly. And I want to thank my fellow committee members for your willingness to share and work on this. I know it's a lot of work for a short amount of time, but it's for a great reason. It's for the benefit of our community to try and get the things that we need from the state to be able to take care of our citizens directly. So thank you.
Councilperson McLaughlin for comments.
Thank you. I'd like to commend the city clerk for the new layout of the agenda. It's aesthetically pleasing. Thank you.
All right, aesthetically, spell that, please. Councilperson Zacharias, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to take this opportunity to wish my beautiful wife a very happy Bastille Day next Friday that she happens to share her birthday with.
Okay. Heard it here first. Happy birthday. Happy Bastille Day. All right. Councilperson Smith, you're recognized for comments.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a little fun for everyone. On August the 5th at 5 p.m., we will be celebrating Emancipation Day. Everybody is welcome to come out, bring your families, bring your children, and watch the performance. It is free. The Emancipation Day celebration will feature hip-hop DJ Foley, gospel singers, street performers, steppers, vendors, food, music, dance contests, and more. Come out and enjoy the blast of Clarksville, Southern Silky Soul Flavor. Come on out. It's free. It will be, good question, in front of the Burkhardt Community Center at 1011 Franklin Street. It will be a block party, y'all. Y'all missed it. The mayor danced last time.
Could have gone all night and said that. You're out of order.
So y'all
Okay.
come on and enjoy.
Okay, thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you,
Councilperson Red, you're recognized for comments.
Yes, ma'am, I was just wanting to inquire that maybe when will these glass or plexiglass partitions are gonna come down?
We'll remove the penalty box soon.
Okay, thank you.
Councilperson Holloman, you're recognized for comments.
Thank you, Mayor. So I was asked a question last meeting on what came first, the chicken or the egg. So I went ahead and I've given it a lot of thought, and it's going to take about 10 minutes. So if you want to go ahead and go, I mean, it's whatever you want to do. But I think I've come up with a pretty good answer, and ultimately the answer I came up with I felt was kind of lazy. So I went ahead and just kind of expanded on it to bring up the IQ a little bit. But what came first, the chicken or the egg? And so there's a lot of different ways to look at this. You have the clicker. Yeah. There we go. So the
You're out of order.
The answer is pretty multifaceted, but if you're looking at the ordinance, then you're talking about like standard egg production, then you do have to have hens before you can have eggs. So thus, the chicken has to come before the egg. But if you look at like the existence of time, if you want to study dinosaurs, then you can make an argument. Well, the dinosaurs laid eggs, so therefore eggs came before the chicken. My personal argument, and I've done a lot of research on it, and I've thought about it, and we'll get more into it later, but I'm just content with only God knows, and the reason I'm content with that is because it gives me a sense of peace, and it simplifies things. There's a counter argument to that, and that's people say that they're not sure, they don't think God exists. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of a perspective on why I feel like that is a good answer for what came first, the chicken or the egg. So what you do is you look at science, you look at religion, you look at philosophy, and it's like an incomplete puzzle. You just got to get all these little pieces, and you got to put them together. For example, like, is that a polar bear, like on the Arctic Circle, or up in the North Pole? You could say yes. It could be something different though, but putting all those pieces together, it does give you kind of a view. And so, for me, I had some really strange sequence of events happen pretty frequently, and I talked to some people about this, and they seem to kind of go along with it as well. And it's just something that I would like everyone to ask themselves, like, you ever notice strange sequence of events happen in your life, like weird coincidences? Most people say that they have. You ever walk into a room and you're just like, man, everyone's just in a really bad mood, or just really tense, or man, everyone's in a really good mood today. Like you can kind of feel the flow of the energy of the room, and the ultimate conclusion to that is would be God, or the universe is conscious. And so you're putting the pieces together, and most of my sources are religious texts, philosophy, and science. For the most part, it's Roman philosophy, as well as texts just from the Bible. I have studied pretty much every religion known to man, as well as some Taoism, and you got Hinduism, several different other ones. But just to keep it short, I am sticking to the texts I mentioned previously. But if you look at the Bible, it says Psalms 19:1, the heavens are declaring the glory of God, and their expanse shows the work of his hands. It's a Davidic psalm. The Roman philosophy, Marcus Aurelius, he was emperor. He wrote, everything's interwoven into the web is holy. None of its parts are unconnected. They are composed harmoniously and together. They compose the world. And when he says world, he says everything that he can observe through that, because they couldn't explore space, obviously. Let's see. And so this was an article actually posted this morning. And this is from the James Webb Telescope. It's one of the most powerful telescopes that mankind has ever made. If you look at the patterns of the web of the cosmos, and you see those lines, those are called filaments, and it's really complex. But if you look at it and just study the way everything is, the way photons move and everything, it's really interesting, especially when you look at brain cells. So on the left, you have brain cells, a pattern of neurons and neurological connections. And on the right, you've got the universe. And I think the similarities are pretty uncanny. And so what my conclusion is that pretty much that the universe is conscious. Like, it's really a 2 hour long speech. I'm trying to condense down here. So without going into too much like astrophysics. But like, how does God know about chickens and eggs? Well, it's omnipresence. It's just presence in all places, all at once. And the easiest way for me to describe it is like, you're not looking at it and you feel like a mosquito land on you. You know there's something on there and it's biting you. Just imagine that times like 1,000 as far as like situational awareness. And that's pretty much the easiest way I can explain it. And here's another viewpoint. Marcus Aurelius says, "What we do now echoes in eternity." And that was taken from his own personal journals called Meditations. It's a really good book. But photons do echo through eternity. So you have to think, like, the oldest observed galaxies are 13.5 billion years old. So it takes 13.5 billion years for that light to reach us. And so, that being said, we can, if we had a powerful enough telescope, we could zoom in and we could see what was going on at that time period. So those photons are traveling throughout space, throughout pretty much all of eternity. Okay? So just think about that now. Just think about where you're at in your life. And people say, well, how does that affect me? Well, everything we're doing right now is being projected through photons through space for the rest of eternity. So just keep that in mind, especially when you think people aren't watching. There's definitely something there, and all that information is there for all the universe to see. So the answer to the question is, because it's taken such a long time, and it's like it's like throwing a baseball in a giant baseball stadium. You know, it's like you can see the ball coming towards you is because of the photons. Right? Because the photons hit the ball and then they reflect back into your eyes. And so what that does is it's a long sequence. And I really need a chalkboard just to draw it out. But you can essentially go through time through the photon sequences and flow of information. We can now access this current tech with our current tech if we ever even get there. But this is the conclusion. That's my spiel. Thus, that my answer, that only God knows, is correct. And I hope that I've proved that. And that's my answer to what came first, the chicken or the egg.
I want to say thank you to Mr. Bittner for pinch hitting for us tonight and last week. Thank you, Eric. And I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Without objection, we're adjourned.